Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB Deeper Dive, presented by Prize Picks. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. Got a little 7-game action on a Thursday night. Ready to make some things happen today. Some low totals across the MLB today. We'll get into all of that. Top pitching options, top stacks, all of that good stuff over the next hour. And then hand this one off to Live Before a Lock coming up right after this, taking you up to first pitch. But first off, what's good, brother? How we feeling today?
Good. A couple good MLB slates in a row, so that's been nice. Yeah, feeling pretty good.
Good. Like to hear that. Yeah, man. We were in the chalkboard yesterday, and we were all like, I was heavy on Tampa players, homers. I don't know. Did you play baseball last night?
Yeah, I won the night slate yesterday.
Oh, did you? Nice. Getting back in the groove?
Yeah, got second in that tournament Tuesday night and won it last night. So
nice. How much?
7,500 on Tuesday, 20K yesterday.
Sweet.
Yeah, so hopefully just make that a habit and just win it every night going forward.
Dude, Medina had been so bad against righties specifically, and I'm looking up all of this, and all these guys are just hammering fastballs, sliders, and just one of those spots where, as I threw these bets, we had a good night overall, but as I threw these bets in the chalkboard, everyone, we all looked at it, we're like, yeah, these are some really interesting spots. But as it happened, as you're throwing home run bets in there, or you're stacking a team that just has a 5.5 run total against garbage pitcher and they profile perfectly against them, you just know it's not going to work.
Yeah,
every single time.
It's never that easy.
It's never that easy.
Yeah. My winning lineup was actually a 5-man Tampa stack, but I was actually underweight on Tampa overall. It just worked out that lineup came together perfectly.
Yeah, congrats though, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, the A's or the Rays still put up some runs. It's just they weren't putting them out of the park. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Tampa didn't hurt my lineup, but it was that it had Jake Berger and Fernando Tatis together and Ranger Suarez is what got it done.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. Hey, if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that thumbs up. We got 30 thumbs up out of 134 out of the gate. So that's not pretty decent ratio. Appreciate you. I know a lot of you guys come in early, you hit the thumbs up, and then we cruise from there. But simple reminder, in the event that you forgot, take a second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, let's get into this one. So we got 7 games today. Just looking at this slate before we break everything down individually, is there anything that stands out just from hey, not a ton of high total games? Pitching, you got a few guys owned around 30% on DraftKings on a 2-pitcher format, but nobody getting absolutely steamed as far as ownership goes. What are you seeing on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think you alluded to it, and it's, you said there's not a lot of high totals. There are 2 of 14 pitchers on this slate that I can say I have no interest in. Other than that, there's 12 guys where it's just yeah, I don't mind this play, or, it's a great play. And so the inverse of that is it's really hard to like many stacks here. When we did the strategy show this morning, Neil had me go over my top 3 stacks at the end, and it's okay, that's easy. And, I named the top 2, and then it's just I have no idea. I kind of hate all of the rest. So it's one of those slates where I think they're fun to play. They're not fun to talk about because it just leads to a lot of yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Nothing looks good. Nothing looks bad. But I think they're fun to play because outside of a couple spots that are clearly the best spots, it's just you can kind of just avoid ownership, or you're going to get lower owned spots. You're going to get spots lower owned than they should be because, for example, the Texas game where you have 2 really good offenses, 2 really good pitchers, and last I looked, all 4 of those spots are projected to go under owned. So it creates pretty interesting slates and tournaments.
Yeah, it really does. So I guess no better time than now than to dive into this one. We can start it off with Detroit plus 175 in the money line, 7.5 run total. All right. So this is a pretty good example, just diving into it, because you got Sonny Gray on the other side of this one. Sonny Gray right now on DraftKings, at least, getting more ownership than any other pitcher. He's not exactly cheap. He's having a strong season, but recently the strikeout stuff hasn't really been there, which is interesting. And in some of these spots, he's definitely had a shorter leash than I would have expected. Do you have any concerns there, just seeing that, the leash on somebody like Sonny Gray, you would think would be a little bit longer? He's been relatively efficient, but recently over his last 5 starts, the strikeout stuff hasn't really been as active as we saw earlier. And we can chalk some of that up maybe to a couple of those matchups, understandably so. But tonight he's got Detroit. So then you look at this and you go, all right, he's facing the Detroit Tigers. It's a get right spot from a K standpoint as you can get.
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about the recent strikeouts for the reason you said. If you look at his last 5 starts, faced Toronto, really tough strikeout matchup. Cleveland, really tough strikeout matchup.
Yep.
Houston, tough strikeout matchup. And Toronto and Houston, both good offenses in addition to being tough strikeout matchups. San Francisco, good offense, and he struck out 6. Dodgers, tough matchup. The bigger concern for me is that he left after 5 innings last start, 76 pitches. That's obviously concerning. 90 pitches against Cleveland, 2 starts prior, 79 in 6 innings against Houston. They haven't really been pushing him recently. And so that's a much bigger concern to me. That being said, I'm still playing him a lot. It's a great matchup against Detroit. He's a really good pitcher. He's also, you're getting a discount on him compared to the other pitchers at the top. And one other thing about this slate that, I didn't explicitly say before, but it goes both ways. Like there's not a lot of offenses you like because they're facing good pitching, but then like Shohei Ohtani is facing the Rangers. Evaldi is facing the Angels. Javier's got a tough strikeout matchup. So for a lot of these pitchers, you can also point to flaws in their matchup. So I don't think it's good to get too bogged down in being concerned about what's happened recently with Gray's workload, because you're going to have questions about pretty much any pitching on this slate for the most part. So given the cheap price, given the great matchup, I am still going there. But I certainly would prefer that he had just thrown 7 innings in all of his recent starts.
For sure. It's objectively a great spot for it.
Right. And the other thing, I mean, you only have to go back you have to go back to last night to see how, you can be concerned about how long someone's leash is, but it can change at any given moment. Yuri Perez hadn't gone more than 5 innings in any start. And it got to the point where it's like, all right, like maybe the Marlins are doing this on purpose. And then he just comes out and throws, 6 great innings yesterday. The most he's pitched all year. So it's, you don't want to get too reliant on what they've done recently.
Absolutely. Now, all right. Here's one that I think would be actually pretty interesting for us to get into. The other side of this one, we both agree that Sonny Gray's in a good spot. He's not exactly cheap, but it's as good a spot as you're going to get. Matthew Boyd, on the other hand, going up against Minnesota. Now, we know that this is no superstar here by any stretch of the imagination, but just let me set the table for you and get your thoughts here. So on the season, Minnesota has the 4th lowest WRC plus against lefties. They have the 2nd highest strikeout rate in the league against lefties too. This is a matchup that can be exploited. But then on the other hand, it's like Boyd is somebody that could also get tuned up pretty quickly. Strikeout rate is basically around average on a guy like this. But at 9% and 5,800 on a slate where you mentioned there's a ton of pitchers you could just kind of not get excited about, but throw into the player pool. What do you make of someone like him today?
Yeah, somebody that I'm not going to get excited about, but I assume I will have exposure to him. Yeah. He's just, there's several, the really weird thing is that, so Matt Boyd is clearly underpriced at 5,800. I've said this on a million shows, but if you're a fully stretched out, competent starting pitcher, you really shouldn't be below like 6,500, 7K, unless like, I don't know, you're in Coors or something, but even then you're facing the Rockies, so it doesn't really count. So like he's underpriced, but the weird thing about this slate is you also have Michael Grove at 5,200. You have Smith Shawver at 5,600, 5,500. So you even have this, you have a group of guys at sub 6K, those 3 combined, pulling about 40% ownership, if my math is right. So it's not even like, if I need to pay down, I'll go to Boyd. You have options even if you pay all the way down. So I think Boyd is fine. The Twins are getting Byron Buxton. They do have Byron Buxton back today. That obviously makes the lineup more dangerous. You have Solano leading off, who's a difficult strikeout. Very right-handed lineup. The only lefty in there is Alex Kirilloff batting 3rd. But, Boyd's got, like you said, he's pretty average strikeout pitcher, nearly 23% strikeout percentage against righties this year, has allowed a 190 expected ISO. This park is not great for power. Only, a 4.4 implied run total for the Twins. So it's a spot where I think Boyd is fine if you get there, but it's not like I'm going into this game actively looking to get to Boyd.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think on the other hand, though, you could say that Minnesota bats are relatively interesting as well. I know they're one of the higher owned stacks on this slate, but Boyd, somebody, coming into this game, 22% K rate, but 1.4 home runs per 9. He does give up some power. You said what, 190 x ISO against righties, righty heavy lineup. So there is some, despite how bad they've been against lefties this season, overall, this is still a Minnesota team that has a decent amount of power against lefties. 150 some ISO. It's like middle of the road on this middle of the road. I think it's like 15th or something. So what do you make of the stacks on either side of this game or individual bats?
The Twins are really cheap too. We have them coming in first in stack score. 17.8% chance of being the top value stack is second to Detroit, who obviously sucks and has a more difficult matchup. 8% chance of being the top stack is fifth. So you have second in top value, fifth in top stack percentage. I like getting to Minnesota here. Boyd does give up power. You do have a 4.4 implied run total, which on this slate is one of the highest. The only teams with higher implied run totals are the Dodgers at 4.6, the Astros at about 4.7, and the Braves at like 1 million. But other than that, everybody's like 4.4 or below. So this isn't, there's a lot of slates where they'd be coming in as, like the top, like the, bottom third, like the top of the bottom third in top stack percentage. But here, they're one of the better stacks, it looks like, both in terms of value and chances of success. So I do like getting to them. The Tigers on the other side, they are really cheap. Like I just said, the top value stack, but they are really tough to get to. One, they're facing one of the best pitchers on the slate in Gray. And then two, they are objectively terrible.
Let's keep moving on then. You got Colorado, huge dogs, plus 200 at Atlanta. Kyle Freeland on one side, Smith-Shawver on the other side. AJ Smith-Shawver is super interesting here. It's just another example of, and you already pointed it out, right? Like there's a lot of these pitchers today that we're probably going to talk about that have to be discussed. First of all, they're big time money line favorites at home against Colorado. A poor offense, and then Kyle Freeland on the other side. Atlanta, obviously powerful offensively, but I do wonder where you stand on a guy like this who, in 7 2/3 innings, which means nothing at the major league level, you're not seeing those strikeouts. But this is somebody who is striking batters out in AAA at 28%, 31% at AA. Like, there is some strikeout stuff there, and he's going up in a pretty solid matchup. What do you make of him today at his price point?
I like him quite a bit. He's a top 100 prospect. He's 20 years old. Like you said, only made 2 starts at AAA this year. Struck out 28% of hitters, couple starts at AA, struck out 31%. But with somebody like this, I think you're just relying pretty heavily on projection models. The bat has him with a 23% strikeout percentage rest of the season. ATC's at 22.5, 4.2 FIP from ATC, 4.77 from the bat. I think the expectation should be that he's going to have serviceable strikeout stuff. He's certainly going to have his share of struggles, just being a very inexperienced 20-year-old in the major leagues, but he's $5,500 facing one of the worst offenses in baseball. It's not like you have to, decide what to do with him at 7,500 or 8K. He's priced to somebody that can't even go 5 innings, and we know that he can. He threw 86 pitches last time out, went 5 1/3 in his first major league start. So, I doubt he's throwing 8 innings or anything, but I don't think we should be too concerned about the leash on him based on what we saw last time out. So the price tag here is enough for me to be very interested. He's pulling 17% ownership. He's the most popular of the cheap pitchers, coming in ahead of Grove and Boyd. But yeah, good matchup. What projects as a good enough pitcher at a very cheap price tag.
I know we have some pretty decent pitchers at the top today. You mentioned some of those matchups aren't great. And we'll talk about all of those for sure, whether it's just tough offensive opponents or a tough strikeout matchups. But kind of leads me into the next point here. You look at Atlanta and you go, all right, well, on a value score, you're looking at our top stack tool right now. Value-wise, you're not going to get a ton of value out of this team. They have a 6-run implied total, though. 17.6% top stack probability in our top stack tool. 15.4% ownership share. But I look at this and go, all right, we're in the second game. We've only spoken on 3 pitchers so far, and 2 of them are wildly underpriced. Does it mean they're exciting? No. But it means that there are clearly ways that if you wanted to pay up for an Atlanta stack today, not only is it doable, but it's actually relatively easy.
Yeah, and you're not even really sacrificing that much in the way of upside because it's not like you're talking about, going to some pitcher that gets no strikeouts and you're just hoping he gets ground balls for 5 innings.
Exactly.
Boyd has a 22% strikeout percentage. Smith Shawver's at 22%. Michael Grove's at 22%. There's a pretty good chance at least one of those guys, especially given that Smith Shawver is facing the Rockies and Grove is facing the White Sox. Two of these guys are facing teams with implied run totals south of 4. Like, there's a pretty good chance at least one of these guys is giving you a good start. And so really it just kind of comes down to, does Atlanta come through? Which obviously your guess is as good as mine. Hitting is very, very hard. Teams with the highest implied run total fail constantly. I make fun of Sean V for it all the time when he's like, oh, well, this chalky team's probably going to fail. And it's like, yeah, they're going to fail 80% of the time at least. We have Atlanta right now with an 18.5% chance of being the top stack. That is more than double any other team on the slate. And it still means they are less than 20% to succeed. They're 82% to fail, at least in terms of not being the top stack. So it's going to be easy to get to them. And the other thing that is nice is, they are getting ownership, but there are ways you can differentiate within that stack as well. Matt Olson is $6,200 lefty against Freeland, who has been very good against lefties this year. It's not a good matchup for Olson, but he's still a great hitter. And if Atlanta does what they should against Freeland, you can get into the bullpen early and then just have a 6% owned Matt Olson going up against the Rockies bullpen. Michael Harris, same spot, 3,500, 6% owned. Orlando Arcia, 6% owned. So there are ways you can differentiate within this stack. The only guys getting, a lot of ownership, Acuna pulling 24%, Albies 22, Murphy 19. These guys are all really, really good top of their position type plays. So I don't really have an issue with that. Riley coming in at 16%. He's one of the best third base plays. Pilar is free, getting 11%. So, they're popular, but it's not overly concerning how popular they are.
On FanDuel right now, Smith Shawver has a K prop of 5.5, Adam.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, like the under's juiced on it, sure, but 5.5 K prop, that's crazy for a guy at this price point. It really. Oh, by the way, so does Matt Boyd. He's also 5.5. So like, these guys are live to get you 6-7 strikeouts in a game like this at no cost.
Right. These are not bad strikeout pitchers. Normally, when we talk about the like $5,500 guys, and I'm talking about them being underpriced, it's just because of how it's that they can go 5-6 innings and just get there based on that. These guys can do that and actually pick up, 6-7 strikeouts,
which is crazy. Yeah, and it just makes some of these spots look so much better. What about the other side of this one? I would assume that when you said there were two pitchers you're not interested in, one of them was Kyle Freeland today.
Freeland was one of the two, yeah. And even he's not like a horrible pitcher. He is getting outside of cores, which is nice. He's gotten lit up by righties this year. 218 expected ISO, 354 expected WOBA, and Atlanta obviously has an almost entirely right-handed lineup with the exception of Olson and Harris. On the other side, I think the Rockies as like a secondary stack, or even as the main stack, if you wanted to like pair them with popular Braves or something, they do make some sense just given that you have a 20-year-old pitcher making his third ever major league appearance. The guy obviously could struggle. There's no, it's not like this is a proven ace, already or anything like that. So I don't hate the idea of getting to some low-owned Colorado. Right now, they are projected for 4% aggregate ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack. If you look at them individually, the most popular hitter on the team is Nolan Jones at 7%. Ryan McMahon, same as Jones. I think those guys are fine. Profar is cheap leading off. So I don't mind mixing them in at low ownership, but you're obviously not going to feel as good about it. And somebody in chat, the Rank Depositor said, how do you approach games when weather is going to be a factor? Reasonable to fade games with high probabilities of rain? Kind of. This isn't one that I intend on fading right now. This just looks, at least at the moment, like your typical summer Atlanta game. And if you're fading this one, you're just not playing the Braves for the rest of the year or until September. Basically, right now, it just looks like there could be storms in Atlanta. If there are, hopefully it doesn't end up over the park. That's sort of just going to be the forecast for the next 2 months in Atlanta. So for this game specifically, unless the forecast changes, I'm not worried about it. Other than that, it's really dependent on what exactly the forecast is, what the teams are doing in terms of, do you think they're going to late start or not? So it's really situation specific, but with the way things look right now, I'm not too worried about it in Atlanta.
Okay. All right. We got 2 down, 5 to go here. Yeah, I wanted to shout out a couple of people too. Timmy, dude, you love to see this. So the Sims tools we just released last week, and the results have been pretty evident. First of all, we just released the PGA Sim tool yesterday as well, right before the US Open, which is pretty exciting. But Timmy, I don't care for the free month. I would change the logo, but have to have something different so I can see where I am quickly. But these stochastic tools off the hook, and and this new Sims tool, don't even get me started. 3 days using, 2 nice wins. With a shout out, Timmy there. Sims tool, simulating all your lineups against each other thousands of times. Pre-contest sim, post-contest sim. It's the newest tool that we have. It's changing the way things are done, especially if you're playing in these larger field contests. Like, it doesn't, if you're in the nickel or the dollar, you don't have to be worrying about this. But Adam, as far as the Sims tool goes, how would you say for someone that maybe not new to DFS, but new to the process of something like this, what would the best way to be to explain how it works to someone that's still maybe on the fence about understanding it?
So I think, like, conceptually, the best way to think about it is it's going to naturally give you that balance that you're trying to find between lineups that project well and ownership. That's something that we talk about a lot, and we always talk about it, kind of separately, where obviously you want to play, if you knew nobody was going to play the team that projects the best, you're just going to play that team over and over and over again, and make a lot of money. But obviously people are going to play those teams. And so you're trying to balance it out. But by simulating a contest, the way the Sims tool does, you're getting the lineups that do that the best, that combine being relatively low owned, at least in spots, and projecting well, are going to just rise to the top, because you're going to get the benefit. Like, when in a simulation, if a low owned hitter does really well, those lineups are going to shoot, they're going to benefit more than if a really popular hitter does well, because then all the other lineups are coming with them. So it's essentially just simulating out over and over and over again which lineups beat out the lineups that you submitted the best. So if you submit a group of lineups that are reflective of what the field is likely to look like, then the lineups that are coming out on top are going to just be giving you the best balance of, hey, these lineups are good enough, they can score really well often enough and succeed, but they're also not wildly popular to where when they score well, so do a million other lineups.
Right. So you're essentially trying to mirror the expectation of what the field is going to look like in these simulations.
Right. Like you want to be similar to the field in terms of the percentages of players when you're in the group of lineups you're putting in, because that's essentially how the ownership is being accounted for. But as long as you're doing that, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but like, as long as you're doing that, and the better job you're doing of that, the more helpful they're going to be. It's going to just it's going to essentially just be pushing the lineups to the top that are the best combination of performing well consistently, or most often, but also being at the top when they actually perform well.
And I think you've said this, that pro DFS players have been using something like this for a long time now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've compared it before, because I know people have asked about it, and I've talked about it. Like, a lot of DFS players have been doing this for a long time, and I haven't, because I am not that smart. But it's the same concept. It's just a more effective concept to what I did for a long time, that I would talk about, like taking my lineups out of Fantasy Cruncher, putting them into an Excel model that I built, and having that determine what the best mix of projection and ownership was. All this is doing it in a much more effective way, because instead of using a static data point like your median projection, it's using range of outcomes to determine all of this. So it's just basically a much more effective way of what I've been doing for a long time. And it is similar to what I know a lot of other people have been doing.
Check it out. Link in the description and in chat. If you guys wanted to get in on that, check out the new Sims tool. Just seen an insane amount of success with these guys early on. So if you're not there yet, you want to check it out. Links in the description and in the chat. Let's talk about LA and Texas. Shohei Ohtani, Nathan Eovaldi, 8-run total here. Angels even money, plus 100. So, I mean, pretty even matchup here. Looking at this one, though, I guess the first thing that stands out, Adam, is the fact that the two highest priced pitchers on the slate are both from this game. Well, yeah, Nathan Eovaldi, almost $11,000 now. And then Shohei Ohtani not far behind him on DraftKings at 10.7. Are these two guys at their respective price points, given what we know about this slate already, that you still think you're going to have a lot of? Or do you think you're going to be getting elsewhere, particularly with some lower priced options?
I think I'll still be getting to them just based on talent, but this game is really interesting. I think it's the most interesting game on the slate from a DFS standpoint. I don't really think there's like a right answer to how to approach it, but there's a very good chance that every aspect of this game comes in under owned. Right now, in the top pitchers tool, we have Shohei Ohtani at the top, 25% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only projected for 17% ownership. Now, he is second most expensive to Evaldi. So it's not perfect apples to apples saying, oh, well, he's 25% to be a top 2 scorer. He's 17% owned. He's under owned. The true difference is smaller because of the salary, but he's still projected to be under owned here. And the same goes for Evaldi, 20% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 17% ownership. But they also have really tough matchups. So the salaries in addition to those matchups is why you're seeing that lack of ownership. But these spots are always really interesting to me because essentially what's happening is nobody is really flocking to any part of the game because the median projections are not great because it's a really tough matchup for Ohtani. It's a really tough matchup for the Rangers. It's a really tough matchup for Evaldi, and it's a really tough matchup for the Angels. So when you're just looking at median projections and building lineups off of that, nothing's really going to pop. But, and this is where simulations can come in too. When you're simulating the range of outcomes and you're accounting for the fact that Shohei Ohtani strikes out 33% of the hitters that he faces, and you're accounting for the fact that the Rangers have one of the best offenses in baseball against right-handed pitching with a 122 WRC plus, when you're, just doing this over and over again, it's not actually realistic. It's not that Ohtani is going to give up 3 runs in 5 innings every single time and the Rangers are going to finish with 4 runs. A lot of the time, Ohtani is going to just dominate, strike out 10 guys, pretend that the Rangers are a shit offense and put up a huge game. A lot of other times, Texas is just going to light up Ohtani and score, 8 runs. Like that stuff is going to happen often enough that you're just going to see probably all parts of this game not actually get as much ownership as they should because median projections just don't tell the whole story when you have this much talent in all aspects of it.
It's crazy to see Evaldi, a guy that, 25% K rate. So nothing insane. Like it's still above average, but the fact that he is just pitching so deep into games right now, like it's crazy to see some of the stretch of some of these games where he's just pitching so deep into these contests. Like, and with relatively low pitch counts as well. He had a stretch where 9 innings, 8 2/3, 7 9. This guy's been really efficient, but 10-8, like how much Evaldi do you get to today?
Yeah. So I think that like calling him a priority would be not correct because you do have to keep in mind, Sonny Gray is $1,500 less than him facing the Tigers. Christian Javier,
that different.
Right. At least in terms of strikeout stuff. Now this is where the leash on Sonny Gray is like that does make a difference.
Yep.
I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I'm pretty confident that Evaldi's not getting yanked at 76 pitches today.
For sure.
If he's pitching well. So he goes deep in the games, and that's been a thing that has been the case for years, which is weird because early on in Evaldi's career, it was like, man, if this guy could ever be healthy, and then suddenly he got healthy and just became an absolute like horse. But you expect him to go deep into the game. There are strikeouts in the Angels lineup. It is a dangerous lineup, but still 20% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 17% projected ownership. He's a good play in tournaments. I don't think he's somebody that would show up in cash games.
All right. Yeah. He's really expensive. What's
so the biggest thing holding him back in terms of like being a priority is if you're willing to just say, look, I want somebody with a really high ceiling. I don't care if he's in a tough matchup. Shohei Ohtani strikes out 33% of hitters compared to 25% for Evaldi. So you're just going to play Ohtani if you're just willing to throw away the risk, you're still going to get to Ohtani before you get to Evaldi.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll get to another high price pitcher in
Granted,
a moment.
Granted, the risk isn't exactly the same because the Rangers are better than the Angels, but still.
Looking at bats here, just wanted to see where ownership was coming in on these stacks. You may have mentioned it already.
I just mentioned that they were probably both going to be a bit under owned.
Yeah, 6% to Texas, 4% to the Angels. Angels with some leverage, 2.5%. Stack score they grade out pretty much like neutral, nothing crazy here. Anything else you wanted to hit on with batters for this one before we move on?
Yeah, so one thing that does suck about the Angels is that you can't play Ohtani as a hitter if you're stacking them. So you're missing out on the best hitter in their lineup. That's not to take anything away from, Ward, Trout, Rendon, Renfroe, Drury. Like, it's still a dangerous lineup, but it does make them more difficult to stack. The Rangers, 4.4 implied run total, same run total as the Twins. I am still somewhat interested in them. They just have a massive ceiling against right-handed pitching this year. 122 WRC plus, 192 ISO, just a very good offense. Nathaniel Lowe's back in the lineup. He missed yesterday. He's also pretty cheap at 4,300. So it's not, just like I was saying a minute ago, it's not a spot. I'm not looking at this and saying, I think the Rangers are a good play because Shohei Ohtani, XYZ. Shohei Ohtani is really, really good. Sub 300 expected WOBA to both sides of the plate. Has allowed a 178 expected ISO to lefties, which is relatively high. But it's more so just if Ohtani doesn't have his best stuff, and every pitcher essentially is going to have at least a few games a year where that's the case, the Rangers are really good and can light him up at low ownership. So it's not that it's likely they come through. It's just that when they do have a good game, they have so much power and speed on this team that they're putting up massive DFS scores. And if you're looking at the top stacks tool, keep in mind, this is a team where I think that the aggregate ownership's a little bit misleading because you have 16% ownership coming into Corey Seager simply because shortstop is a tough position and Corey Seager is really good. And then you have 11% coming into Jonah Heim, same reasons. Catcher is not great. Jonah Heim's one of the better hitting catchers. So it's pulling up the aggregate, but for most of these other spots, 5% to Garcia, 8% to Lowe, 6% to Tavares, 3% to Grossman, 8% to Semien. Like, as a stack, they are not very popular.
All right, let's move on then to this next game. Kind of interesting. Pittsburgh and Chicago Cubs. The Pirates plus 130 on the road. 7-run total here between Oviedo and Marcus Stroman. But Marcus Stroman's another one of those guys. He's not going to wow you with the strikeout stuff or anything like that. But he's gone 6+ innings in 12 of 14 starts this year. X-ISO of 111 against righties, 106 against lefties. He allows 0.5 home runs per 9. I mean, just overall, a really, really solid pitcher. Maybe the upside here, I know he had a game against Tampa where he just went nuts, that one hitter against Tampa. But generally speaking, like, the upside on Stroman isn't all that crazy, but he's just been extremely reliable this season, and now he's got a home spot against Pittsburgh. What do you make of that on a 7-game slate with all of these weird pitching options?
Yeah, so if you want a negative for Stroman here, it's that he's only struck out 19% of lefties this year, and the Pirates have 6 of them in their lineup, including 5 in the 4 in the top 6, 5 in the top 7. So that's the pretty much lone negative, but it's not like he's bad against lefties. He just doesn't strike them out at the same rate he does righties, where he struck out 25%. But 106 expected ISO, like you said, the lefties, 325 expected WOBA. That's perfectly fine. The other big thing here is that the wind is blowing in at Wrigley, 15 to 20 miles an hour. It's sub 60 degrees. This game has a 7-run total because it's such great pitching weather here. 3.2 implied run total for the Pirates. So Stroman looks really good. I saw somebody in chat ask who was going over-owned as far as pitchers go. Stroman is, but it's important to keep in mind that that doesn't mean he's a bad play. It just means that if you essentially within a lineup, if you have allocated too much ownership to hitters and you need to be different somewhere else, it is fine to get away from Stroman and go to a lower owned pitcher that's going a bit under owned. But Stroman is a good value option here at 8,700. Every pitcher ahead of him in top 2 pitcher percentage costs at least 9,300. Gray. The other 3 are at least 10 too. So you're talking about a $1,500 price difference between Stroman and Javier. A $2,100 price difference between him and Evaldi, 2K between him and Ohtani. So the value component does factor in here, just like it did with Ohtani, where it's not as simple as saying, well, he's 32% owned, 18% chance of being top 2. He's wildly over-owned. He's probably a little bit over-owned when you factor in the price, but it's a lot closer. So really, really good play. In an individual lineup, if you needed to save some ownership, there are some other pitchers we'll get to in the mid-range that still have high ceilings and are getting like 1/3 of the ownership. But Stroman projects really well here in great pitching weather against a Pirates team with a 3.2 implied run total.
61% ground ball rate.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good he's always been good at
Always,
pitching.
yeah.
And we have actually seen an uptick in strikeout stuff against righties this year. But again, that's not a huge factor here since the Pirates are running out 6 lefties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 3.6 xFIP, 3.5 FIP, half of a home run per 9 innings. The guy's really good.
He also has maybe one of the sickest like portrait / mural back tattoos that you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a reason to bump the projection a point or two.
Have you seen him though?
Yeah, I mean, not in a while, but I have seen his tattoos.
I mean, they're sick, dude. The Peaky Blinders tattoo as well.
Yes, I know that's like your favorite tattoo because you mention it like every chance you get.
It's, dude, I'm telling you, if you just look it up, like it's incredibly well done. I showed it to my tattoo artist. I was like, check this out. Cause he had actually done when he was living in Florida during spring training, he'd actually tattooed a bunch of MLB players. And I showed that to him. And even he was like, yeah, this is insane.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet, dude. You should get something like that.
Yeah. I'll just walk in like a random shop with a picture and be like, hey, can you just do this?
To do that. I mean, that's probably a good $20,000 of work there.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive.
Not that he's worried about that, but yeah, it's insane. Anyway,
yeah, I think he's doing okay.
Any interest on the other side of this one, Oviedo?
Sort of. I mean, he's in that bucket that I mentioned at the beginning of the show where like he's fine. He's pulling 11.5% ownership. He's 7,200. The same weather that makes us really like Stroman applies here, obviously, as well. Oviedo is not as good a pitcher as Stroman, but he's not terrible. 22.5% K percentage to lefties, 16% to righties, 302 expected WOBA to righties, 323 to lefties. Like he's still fine. The thing that is keeping his ownership in check, though, is that when you think about what your lineups are going to look like, you're most often either going to be able to find the money to get from Oviedo up to like Sonny Gray or Marcus Stroman, or you're gonna say, okay, well, I could play Oviedo, or I could save $2,000, go down to one of these 5 to 6K guys, and then turn some random 4K one-off into like Ronald Acuna instead. So that's why you're only seeing 11% ownership come into Oviedo. Is just that most builds you're going to either pay more or less for that SP2. But if you land at 7,200 and you need a pitcher, he's perfectly fine.
You mentioned how good the pitching conditions are here. I mean, it's stacking against Stroman, especially like not even just that he's a good pitcher, but the fact that he doesn't allow home runs and he doesn't allow fly balls makes it even worse considering how bad the hitting conditions are. And
kind of a waste of good hitting conditions.
What's that?
It's kind of a waste of good hitting conditions. Like if you're going to get ground balls every at bat anyway, who cares what the wind's doing?
Oh, waste of good pitching conditions.
Yeah,
you mean?
Yeah,
absolutely. I was thinking that, yeah, for sure. But now it's just like, how do you? I mean, I suppose if Stroman is going to give up runs, it's just going to be like balls that have just the seeing eye, like the getting through. But that doesn't really make for great stacks.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, he's allowed a 235 BABIP this year. So yeah, if he gives up like 6 runs today, it's probably that BABIP just bumped up to like 280 or something. But yeah, there's nothing I really want here in the way of bats. Neither of these pitchers give up power. We've talked about it a lot with Stroman, the ground ball rate, the lack of home runs, but Oviedo doesn't give up a lot either. And good luck hitting home runs in Wrigley when the wind's blowing in.
Any interesting Cubs bats?
No.
All right. Let's see.
Cody Bellinger's back.
What's that?
Cody Bellinger's back, so that's cool. But
I saw someone mention that in chat.
Yeah, he looked high as shit walking into the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the picture and I was like, oh, he must just be there and not playing today because but that's also just what he always looks like.
Yeah, his eyes never look open.
No.
At all. So he's not playing today.
No, he is. He's in the lineup.
Oh, you just assumed that he wasn't because
when I saw the picture, I assumed he was just hanging out at the park.
Yeah. All right. Washington and Houston. So I guess the best place to start here probably with this one would be with Christian Javier. Now, 8-run total, Washington plus 175 on the road. This price point, if you compare this against the other top price pitchers, this would probably be the best way to look at it. Among Eovaldi and Ohtani, where would you put Christian Javier?
So
because they're all around the same price.
Right. He's a little bit cheaper. he's got the best matchup in terms of facing a bad offense. Nats are one of the worst offenses in terms of production. They're really, really tough to strike out. We have Ohtani projected for 18.8 DraftKings points. We have Javier at 17.8. We have Evaldi at 17. That's kind of where I was leaning because like Ohtani gives you that little bit extra in terms of ceiling because he's such a good strikeout pitcher. Evaldi's a better pitcher than Christian Javier, but still has the tough matchup, still has to deal with Ohtani and Trout in particular. Javier is not as good a pitcher, 4.3, 4.4 xFIP this year, 25% strikeout percentage, almost identical to Evaldi. Not as good a pitcher, but a much better matchup. So I think he's comparable to Evaldi. I think the cheap price tag makes him look a little bit better. But all three of those guys are pretty similar. 19% ownership coming into Javier, 22% chance of being a top two pitcher, 17% to each of Evaldi and Ohtani, with 20 to 25% chances of being top two pitchers, respectively. So very, very similar. I think I would put him behind Ohtani and ahead of Evaldi.
Okay. And I guess, on the other side of this one, Mackenzie, I was waiting to get your thoughts on this one, just because it's kind of a weird spot in a couple senses. Like, number one, they're big dogs, as they should be, but also somebody that absolutely does have some strikeout upside.
Second highest strikeout percentage on the slate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, you're not, the chances of getting the W here aren't great. Houston also, if he has the second highest K rate on the slate, Houston also has the second highest implied run total on the slate at 5.2. But I'm always fascinated by these type of spots when you go, all right, you know what? 28.2% K rate. He does give up some power. He has struggled at times, but in that same sentence, like, could he go out there and rack up 8 strikeouts? And now you're talking about a guy that, beats a decent matchup and ends up getting the better hand of it and has a great game.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty big boom or bust spot where I'm perfectly happy playing both sides, not in the same lineup, obviously. But one other sort of interesting thing here. So we know Houston's missing Yordan Alvarez. That would be lefty-lefty, but Gore has given up power to lefties, and Alvarez is great. Also no Mauricio Dubon. So you have Chas McCormick leading off. Now, on the one hand, that gives you a cheap leadoff hitter at 3K on a team with a 4.7 implied run total. Good value play. But he strikes out 25 to 27% of the time. So that's adding a little bit of strikeout upside. Altuve, Bregman, Tucker, Abreu, Pena, all tough to strike out. But then Jolks, Myers, and Maldonado will strike out as well. So it's still not a good strikeout matchup, but there are some strikeouts to be had in this lineup. He's pulling about 10% ownership, 14% chance of being a top two pitcher. This is somebody where, kind of like I mentioned with Stroman, where I think Stroman is the best sub 9K play. If you have a team where, let's say you stack the Braves and you're playing Sonny Gray and you need an SP2, maybe you don't want to go to another 32% owned pitcher. You still get that ceiling with Mackenzie Gore. He's got a 28% strikeout percentage, 3.6 xFIP. He's a good pitcher. It's just not a good spot. But he's also cheap and pretty low owned. So as a contrarian tournament play, I think he's fine. Certainly not somebody that I would play in cash or that I'm going on my way to get to or that I expect to have lots of. And
the other thing here too is like, even though he does have considerable K rate, tough matchup, Houston strikes out at an insanely low clip for his lefties. What distinct advantage do you get rostering him over like a Boyd or a Smith Shawver, and a Grove or something? I know he is less owned, but it's not like he's 1% owned and those guys are all 30%.
Right. Like, I mean, if you're the advantage, I guess, is that like he does have better strikeout stuff. There's a better chance. There's a better chance that Mackenzie Gore strikes out 10 guys today than that any of those 5K guys do. But to your point, you also, if you pay down to those guys, at least in theory, you can upgrade your bats. So it's the same issue. I had talked about it with Oviedo. It's the same issue where a lot of the time when I would land on Mackenzie Gore, it's going to be like, oh, well, what if I just save $2,000 and then play better outfielders?
And on the other side of this one, there is certainly some potential for power in a game like this. He has on the season a lot of higher ISO and more power to lefties, but this is still a Houston team with a 5.2 run implied total. In the top stacks tool right now, we have Houston with what, the third high, or fourth highest top stack probability?
Second.
Yeah. What's that?
Second.
Oh, we must have updated. We have them second
Or
highest.
I need to update. I see them at 8.2.
Oh, okay. You're probably
Nope,
right.
nope. I just refreshed. They're down to 7.9. So they're tied with the Dodgers
For
and
third.
somehow Cleveland for third.
Okay. Yeah. And then ownership around 10%. Yeah. So, I mean, this is still a spot where they could put up some considerable numbers here. They also, by the way, they have the highest stack score in our top stack tool as well.
Yeah. They offer value. They have upside. Wait, no, they're.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That was Cleveland. Houston's at 7.
Yeah, Cleveland jumped up. I'm not totally sure what's happening with Cleveland, but yeah, Houston's 6th in stack score, tied for 3rd in top stack percentage.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Houston's another one where their aggregate ownership is relatively high because you have 18% coming to Tucker, 16 to Altuve, 13.5 to McCormick, 10 to Bregman, but 8% or less on Julks, Abreu, who suddenly has figured out how to hit for power again, Pena, Myers, Maldonado. From a stacking standpoint, you can get this team at pretty low ownership. And the other thing to keep in mind is, like, we just spent a bunch of time talking about how Mackenzie Gore is a good pitcher. He strikes out a lot of guys, but you still have to keep everything in context on the slate. Just about every offense that we've talked about, actually every offense we've talked about other than Atlanta, it's been, okay, well, the opposing pitcher is not bad. If anything, he's good. There's not many offenses you can pick from today where you don't think the opposing pitcher is good.
Yeah, exactly. Any Washington bets you want to touch on before we get to these final 2 games?
Not really. I mean, they are cheap, which is nice. Corey Dickerson, 2,200 batting cleanup. Javier is a good pitcher, but he's not great. 200 expected. He has really drastic splits too, which is interesting. So he gives up power to both sides. 242 expected ISO to righties, 200 to lefties. But he has struck out 33% of righties compared to 18% of lefties this year. So if you wanted to, save some salary by using really any of Garcia, Candelario, Dickerson, Ruiz, Smith, Abrams, these are all left-handed bats that have at least some pop. Keibert Ruiz is actually a pretty interesting catcher play. I saw Jake in chat say a second ago that catching on this slate sucks. Keibert Ruiz at least can hit a little bit. He's cheap. I assume he's not going to be popular. I don't really mind that as like a one-off or mixing those guys in as 2-man, 3-man stacks. So obviously don't want to get to Washington too much, but like if I had to choose between going to the Tigers value bats against Gray or the Washington value bats against Javier, I'm going to the Washington bats.
All right, let's talk Cleveland and San Diego Padres. Before we do, Prize Picks tonight. They got the hot dogs going. I'm not sure where hot dog comes from. Like, I'm not sure. Jordan, is there a reason it has that name? Like the discounted plays? Do you know? I don't know either, but I know that they throw a bunch of really good discounted plays out there, like Shohei Ohtani right now. And of course, if you're not on Prize Picks, all you're doing is taking the over or under on these plays. Any sport, literally any sport you can think of, building lineups with them, especially you're in these non-legal betting states, you're looking to scratch that itch. You know what I mean? You build these cards out and you say you go 5 for 5. Like Josh puts his plays out every day. He throws them into our chalkboard app, which you should join if you're not there, by the way. It's free. All the picks, everything. We have a great time. Link in the description for that. But if he'll throw his picks in, he'll do like 5 or 6 plays, flex plays. If say you do 5, you go 5 or 5, you 10x. Unlike traditional parlays at sportsbooks, though, if you go 4 or 5 at a sportsbook, you lose. You don't win, right? Not talking round robin. We're talking parlays. You don't lose. You don't win anything, right? Here, you still 2x. If you do a 6-pick flex play, you hit all 6, you 25x. You still make money back on a 5 of 6 or a 4 if you don't happen to hit all of your plays. But they do like the protected plays on Friday. You get some free squares. These hot dogs are nice though, because they're just discounting very obvious lines and making them immediate plus EV spots. Dylan Cease, this is discounted from 5.5 strikeouts to 4. Shohei Ohtani discounted from 7 strikeouts to 5.5. So you're seeing a 21% discount there, 27% on Dylan Cease. And you're just building them out. You're doing baseball, however many sports you want. You can mix them all together. And You're getting, first of all, first match deposit bonus, $100, up to $100, 100%. I've said it a million times. If you're on these pick'em sites, take advantage of all of them. If not, just to take advantage of the promo. Get 100% on all of them. If you know that you can double your money in the time it takes to sign up and deposit, and 100 turns into 200 or 50 turns into 100, that out of the gate should be enough to do it. However, you get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. You want to check out the MLB tools. Top Stacks, the top pitchers tool that Adam and I have been talking about. You want to check out the lineup generator. You want to get into all of our PGA tools, MMA, everything, tennis, NASCAR, across the board. All of our tools, $120 value, ownership, projections, the premium Discord. You get all of that for free for the entirety of the month. And we do that in partnership with Prize Picks because we think that you're going to win. So if you haven't done so yet, link in the description of Prize Picks. Clear no-brainer here. It's the best promo we run, not just because they're a good site and you get the deposit bonus, but also because you get an entire month 100% free on us when you sign up and deposit over on Prize Picks. So link in the description and in chat. If you're not there yet and you're in an eligible state, Prize Picks, check it out, and we'll see you over there. All right, next up, let's talk about this Cleveland and San Diego game. Any interest in Logan Allen today against the Padres?
Rinse and repeat on Oviedo and Mackenzie Gore. 10% owned, 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 22% chance of being a top 2 value. On a lot of slates, I would really like him. Here, if you get there, great. But I think a lot of times you're just either going to pay up or pay down from that price point. He's having a good rookie season. Doesn't have a great matchup against the Padres. Does have a good pitcher's park. 22.8% K percentage, 3.89 xFIP. He's looks like a good young pitcher. And probably is going a little bit under owned, but it's just that in most lineups I play, I'm probably either going to be playing Stroman and higher or somebody below 6K.
So what about then on the other side? Is this another one of those guys where you go, all right, you know what? Ryan Weathers, I'm good on that.
Weathers is joining Kyle Freeland as the 2 guys that I don't expect to get.
Yeah, I figured as much. 1% ownership on both of these guys.
I mean, Josh played 25% of the guy in quarters the other day, so I can't say I definitely won't get there, but I don't think I'll get.
But it's possible, yeah. But it's unlikely.
Yeah, 1% ownership, 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Like if I'm gonna go to Weathers at 6,500, I just don't know why I wouldn't be playing Allen or somebody cheaper.
Right. You're not getting a significant discount there on some of these other guys that are in better spots and have better strikeout stuff, really.
Yeah, and are just better at pitching. I mean, on a slate where every pitcher is good, essentially 5.24 xFIP is and a 15.5% strikeout percentage is just pretty much disqualifying.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a power-packed Cleveland offense.
No, it's the opposite of that.
Yeah, but they don't really strike out much either. It's similar to the Washington Nationals, like not great teams, but they just put everything in play.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's one of those, like, it shouldn't shock you if Weathers has a decent game here just because it is a good pitcher's park and Cleveland's good or not good. But there's still so many pitchers ahead of him. I don't think I get there.
But right now we've got Cleveland tied, as you mentioned earlier, 3rd highest top stack percentage on the slate. 7.9
highest top value.
Yeah. Yeah. Top value. And also the highest stack score at 10.7%. Jordan, throw the top stacks tool up on the screen or something here. Let's do some of this stuff. We're referencing it a whole lot. Give people an idea at least of what we're looking at here. But yeah, across the board, like we're definitely, and maybe this will adjust before we get to lock, but right now, decent amount going to Cleveland.
Yeah, and I am scared to make lineups because I've been getting to Cleveland a good amount this year anyway, and they're not. They suck. But here, like, they are too cheap. The 2 guys that really stand out are Ahmed Rosario is $3,200 and Jose Ramirez is $4,500. To me, those look like 2 of the best plays at shortstop and third base, respectively. The problem here is the park is really, really bad for hitting. This team doesn't have a lot of power. If you look at what these guys have done, so since the start of the 2021 season against left-handed pitching, going through their lineup. So Stephen Kwan's not in, but Jimenez, 108 expected ISO. Rosario, 133. Ramirez, 216. We know he's good. Josh Bell, 174. Josh Naylor, sub 100. Arias, 79 plate appearances, so take it with a grain of salt, but 113. Fry doesn't project to be a good hitter. Zanino's not in the lineup. I wish he was. Straw, sub 100. Like this team outside of Jose Ramirez has no power to speak of. And they're playing in a park that also kills offense. So they have one of the better matchups on the slate against Weathers. They are cheap, which is great. It's tough to get excited for them because they just cannot hit.
Can you get excited for San Diego against the left-handed Allen?
Middle of the road, I think. Allen is good. The park's not great, but you do have a lot of talent here. Tatis, Machado, Soto, Bogarts, a free Nelson Cruz, Ha-Sung Kim. There's a lot of right-handed power in this lineup that can do damage. As far as stacks go, they're middle of the pack, 7% chance of being the top stack. But keep in mind, every stack other than Atlanta is 8% or below. So 7% isn't, far off. 8% projected ownership is nothing to be overly concerned about. Individually, it's Fernando Tatis at 23%. Manny Machado next highest at 10%. So from a stacking standpoint, not much ownership here at all. I do like them just because, one, they're not really expensive. And two, they do have a lot of talent. And again, outside of Houston and Atlanta, 4.4 implied run total is as high as anybody.
Ready to wrap this one up?
Yep.
White Sox, Dodgers, close it out. I think this is the only 10 p.m. game, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it is. It's the only actual late game tonight. Dylan Cease, Michael Grove, 9-run total here. Chicago plus 125 money line on the road. Do you have any interest in Dylan Cease today against the Dodgers? I guess that's the easiest place to start. We've already talked a decent amount about Grove, but we can wrap that one up too.
Yeah, I think Cease is the most obvious ownership pivot off of the Stroman Gray guys. Just pulling 5% ownership, 12.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. It's another spot where he's not going to project well because he's facing the Dodgers, but we do know he has good strikeout stuff. He hasn't been as good this year, only striking out 25%. That's down from what you expect from him. 4.3 xFIP is not particularly good, but the salaries come down. So, the risks are that he's not having as good a year and he does have a tough matchup. Dylan Cease at 8,200 is pretty much unheard of. So it is accounting for that. That being said, I'm still playing Stroman before him. I'm still playing Gray before him, but there is some appeal to getting a 5% on Dylan Cease. On the other side, Grove is another one of the 3 cheap pitchers that look good. The White Sox this year against right-handed pitching, 88 WRC plus, 22.7% strikeout percentage, 155 ISO. Tim Anderson has still yet to hit a home run this season. It's a good spot, 3.9 implied run total. So Grove's another pitcher I'm happy to get to. Cease, in tournaments here and there is fine, but I think he's more difficult to get to.
And as far as stacks go here, we do have the Dodgers at negative leverage, minus 3.5. They actually have one of the lower stack scores on the slate right now, above only Texas, Pittsburgh, and Chicago. But we do have them, as one of the highest top stack probabilities. They just don't really grade out anywhere. They don't grade out well anywhere else, particularly in value.
Yeah, it's tough from a value standpoint. And it's also a team that it's hard to get excited about a lot of it. Now, the nice thing is that the bottom of the order is going to be cheap, but Betts, Freeman, Smith, Martinez, we know those guys have tons of power. Peralta, Vargas, Hayward, Taylor, Rojas, they're all solid. They're all fine, but not as exciting. Dodgers lineup is, when you have Muncy in there and, when they're healthy. So they look fine. 4.6 implied run total, right behind Houston for third highest on the slate. The value component doesn't matter that much because you do have Grove, Boyd, and the Braves guy, but it's also not like it's also not like it's a great matchup against Cease. I think in tournaments they're fine. But again, it's like this with a lot of teams. It's they're facing a good pitcher. I don't love their chances, but it is the Dodgers. They are going to be relatively low owned and they do have a high ceiling.
All right. So last thing here, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll get over to live before lock. And by the way, guys, if you're not rocking the stochastic avatar yet, putting yourself in a position to make the stochastic Hall of Fame. Not only that, though, the big thing, obviously you gather the family around, you say, hey, look, I made it, guys. And you hear it announced and everyone's excited for you because you got it. But you also get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum if you rock the avatar. Go to stochastic.com/avatar. Download it. Use it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and boom, tweet your wins as Stochastic HOF. Very simple process here. And tag all of us in it because we want to see your wins as well. You get the free month. You get inducted into the Hall of Fame. All you got to do is rock the Stochastic avatar. Be part of the family here. So, yeah. That's what I'm looking for. We got some good ones coming up, and hopefully that you guys are more than willing to be a part of that as well. Put yourself in a position to get some free stuff and also honored in the Hall of Fame. But anyway, Grove, we talk about him being a viable option today. The White Sox just a putrid offense at this point. That 289 WOBA versus righties, 81 WRC plus, a 23% K rate, 6% walk rate. Like, this team doesn't even get free passes against righties. By far the worst in the league, along with the Washington Nationals. But Grove has also struggled so far at this level. And I'm wondering, is there anything here with the Chicago White Sox that we say, you know what? We talk about Grove and the fact that he's got a great matchup, but the White Sox, on the other hand, do still have a good matchup despite how bad they've been.
Yeah, it's decent. The issue is that Grove has really struggled with lefties since the start of last season. 218 expected ISO to lefties, only 120 to righties, 262 expected WOBA to righties. We don't have a lineup yet for the White Sox, but in their projected lineup, the only lefties that you have are Benintendi, Grandal, and Sheets. Benintendi doesn't really have power in general. Benintendi last night could barely swing a bat. So I don't know if he's even going to be in the lineup. He clearly was having wrist issues last night. They were talking about going into his final plate appearance. They were actually talking about him grimacing really badly on his swings earlier in the game. Then he tried the bunt to get on base. It went foul. He ends up getting a base hit because he literally just like stuck his bat out, and like they had a shift on, so the third baseman was off the line. He just sticks his bat out and hits like a little dribbler between the third baseman and the bag, like basically intentionally. But he couldn't even swing yesterday. So one, I don't know if he's playing, and two, if he does, I don't think he's hitting the ball very far. So it doesn't set up as a spot that's that scary for Grove. That being said, 3.9 implied run total isn't that bad on this slate. There are talented hitters here. You know, Anderson probably playing through an injury based on his lack of power this year, but Roberts good. Jimenez has power. Grandal does have left-handed power. Vaughn's got power. Berger's a monster. Berger won me the tournament last night, which was awesome. There is still some power upside for the White Sox. I wouldn't totally write them off as a stack. They're sixth in top stack percentage, about 9% aggregate ownership. But if I could only pick one side, I'd go Grove.
Hey, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Have a great rest of the day. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up after this. Follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me _D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing. Remember, guys, links to everything. You're looking to sign up at Prize Picks, get the sim tool, get 50% off all of our stuff for the month, or just get that avatar up there. Whatever you want to do, everything's down there in the description. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the MLB Deeper Dive. Live Before Lock coming up next. Good luck tonight. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's that time once again to induct all of you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Do the bragging for you, and of course, give out a whole lot of free Stochastic Plus Platinum subscriptions, a full month, $120 value, and all you got to do to get your name up here to get that free sub is, well, download the Stochastic Avatar at stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF. Get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum and get inducted into the Hall of Fame. As always, let's dive into this one. First, we start with our boy, Peter Hanley. He's back in the mix. Not 100K, but I will take it. Peter, dude, this guy went on an insane run a little while back, but he's back. First out of 15,000, $20,000 in the Wednesday MLB squeeze. Nice to see you back here, Peter. And how about Albatross? I don't know how to change my avatar, though. That's okay. I like paying for stuff anyway. $130,000. Got to throw him up here, even without the avatar. Shouting out Stochastic Hall of Fame. We'll take that any day of the week. And Schaefer, my first serious attempt using the new Uber Stochastic tool, the MLB Sims tool / DFS God mode last night on both sites. Count me optimistically impressed. Can I have the honorary shout out? That's Stochastic HOA. Yeah, damn right, man. Second, $4,000 for Schaefer. Taking down the batter's eye, $5,000 or second place, and battery, $2,000 there. So a huge night for Schaefer using the new Sims tool, which has only been out for a week now. We're very happy to see the results, of course. I think 209 DFS is as well. Got a couple takedowns thanks to the crew. and the new Sims tool coming in clutch. There we go. First and seconds across the board for 209 DFS. Let's see, did the tool do any more damage in its first week? Barry Watts does not qualify, do not care. Just please don't tell anybody about this new Sims tool. 5,000, 2,000, 750, and 150 for Barry. Congrats, dude. Even though it doesn't qualify, you know we're throwing it up here. And Travis Scott, I don't need a free month as stochastic. I just love hearing my name shouted out when I ship tournaments. Shout out to the Sims tool. Damn, 4 in a row. First place in the chin music for Travis. Coming in hot this week. Mitchell Kipp, stochastic tools for the win. I love this, man. We've been talking about Sleeper. They got the dynamic payout system, the dynamic pricing, where you can up to 100x on these payouts in these cards. He 51x'd and 14x'd in 2 of them. 10 for 500 and 10 in the 139. Figured we'd throw a little sleeper action up here for Mitchell, taking advantage of that sweet dynamic pricing payouts they have. And JJ, UFC 60K mini max at Stochastic HOF, $2,000 right there for JJ. And Maui, it ain't much, but it's honest work. Thanks. It's pretty nice though, man. 12K beanball, MLB, $500 second place for Maui. And I know it's a lower entry contest, so that's a massive ROI. Ryan Slaughterback, shout out to Greg Ehrenberg and the whole Stochastic crew. Turned 6 in the 4,000. Chopped first, but hopefully still worthy of the Hall of Fame. Ready to rip some more lineups for the U.S. Open this week. LFG, first out of 7, the 800, 4,000 for Ryan. And Millstone just won 150 from a 5-cent game using the Stochastic MLB tools. They paid for themselves already. You love to see it. Username is L Moeller and Millstone 79. Congrats, dude. That's awesome. 5 cents in the 150. And the Professor, man, a few words at Stochastic HOF. Look at that. First place out of 52,000 in the shot, 100K. It's a chop, right? But still, not bad. Just a big night across the board. $13 into 1,156. Got a few more here. Brody, after a ton of close calls, here's another one. At least this one is close enough to qualify for the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Thanks to the boys for teaching me the ways. Third place, 750 in the 30K mini max. And our boy Stay Odd, putting a little something neat together here. Branding it, but also has the Stochastic avatar. $870 in the 15K pull-up jumper. And then we finish it out with Mr. Nasty Time Gaming. What does that mean? Got me a little takedown last night. Thanks for the excellent info you guys put out. 1K first place in the MLB 10K single entry chin music. Remember, all you got to do to get involved, download the avatar, stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here. Crowning achievement for everybody. Gather the family around and tell them, hey, I'm about to be inducted. It's the best day of my life.
Yeah, we are.
So freaking hot.
What is happening, everybody? It is Thursday night. Neil is playing softball. We all know a lot about his softball schedule, which means what? It means Neil's out and Eric Lindquist is in. So as you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Prize Picks, who are sponsoring our show today. We'll be talking more about them as we go. And I'm always happy to have Eric along. We talk about Prize Picks because who's a more aforementioned expert around here in Prize Picks than Eric? Nobody. Eric is our go-to guy, particularly for baseball stuff. We're going to get some more out of that from him in a little bit. But Eric, how are you doing? How excited are you to be joining the show on Thursday?
Oh, ecstatic. In fact, when Neil said it was softball, I said, you know what? That's an emergency. I'm more than happy to be filling in, making sure that you're taken care of, because I didn't just do 84 pieces of US Open content the last 2 days. I don't have an evening show that takes me about 4 hours of prep. I don't have a premium Discord update. I didn't have anything else to do today. So happy to be doing an hour of live before lock, playing way too many lineups. Let's ride.
Absolutely. And if it makes you feel better about
It
having
won't.
to work on short notice, Neil is absolute dog shit at softball. Like when I ask him tomorrow what when I ask him tomorrow what his stat line is. So last week, for instance, and by the way, he's the pitcher. He'll tell you whenever he gives his run.
Oh yeah, he is.
So he's the pitcher. He claimed last week was the best game he ever had, and his team lost. Keep in mind that he is the pitcher. The final score, if I'm not mistaken, was something like 18-6 last week. They lost. He was the starting pitcher, and he thinks it was the best game he ever pitched.
It's not great, Bob. Not great.
Yeah, so he's out there giving out dongs right now, but if we're lucky, I'm sure he's going to go 2 for 4 with 2 singles. He'll be telling us that tomorrow as well. Guaranteed.
Awesome.
Guaranteed.
Now, Neil, I hope you're having fun. I love you. I appreciate you. All I know is that I'm going to dip out one day with Jordan Klein to Pelican Hill. We're going to go have a lovely afternoon and play golf, and there's nothing you can do about it because you owe me, Daddy. You owe me.
Oh, what does he owe you for?
This? I don't know. I'm here with you, getting just beaten up ravagely. By the way, congratulations. Yesterday, very nice night by you. I still beat the shit out of you in Rainmakers last week. How does it feel?
You did. You got the best of me in Rainmakers last night, but MLB, I assume that my lineups were better than yours, but who knows?
Yeah, by a landslide yesterday. By a landslide.
Yeah, so
10% back. That was good.
I mean, for a long time, I've really loved the single entry contest on DraftKings. It's funny because I think some of the higher dollar single entry stuff on DK is simultaneously the sharpest and softest field because
Agreed.
It's so sharp that the ownership gets concentrated on certain spots, which makes a lot of sense for NBA, right? NBA, you get surefire value plays that the field all gravitates towards, but they should be gravitating towards. For baseball, are getting at a slate like tonight, where in single entry, like the Atlanta Braves are going to be like 30-40% owned. There's a lot of advantage to be gained just by going elsewhere. So, it's
one of those things where the leverage is extended when you start talking about some of these smaller fields. When you start talking about higher dollar tournaments, people feel comfortable playing the team with all the implied totals and all the implied runs. And I saw you stacked up the Cubs, and the Cubs didn't even really like smash by any means. Suzuki had a pretty good night. Happ had a pretty good night. Swanson was okay, but like it just beat all the chalky teams that failed. And when that happens, you kind of know that you're in a good spot being on an under-owned team. So it was that. And obviously you had the Tatis. You needed Tatis to be able to get to the top of anything yesterday, but also props for the Crawford play. You stuck to your guns, it looks like. And I didn't know what I was going to do with that weather spot. I ended up just full fading the entire game. Crawford, really low owned, nice spot by you.
It was Garrett Whitlock was the pitcher.
Oh, him, same guy.
But yeah. So it was funny because it was at the end of the show last night, we were talking about my single entry lineup, and I'd said I'm stacking the Cubs in single entry. I have Garrett Whitlock as one of my pitchers, and I think I'm going to stick with him. But I said, I was really waffling on it. I wasn't sure what to do. So obviously I was happy I did, because if I would have taken him out, I would have paid up for pitcher. I probably would have taken Tatis out. So it was it came together. And the other thing too is I was asleep well before the slate was over, but I woke up to a bunch of messages in Discord, people tagging me and whatnot. So
let's run it back.
Yeah,
let's run it back.
Hopefully we're going to run it back. If anybody has questions for us in said Discord channel, at me, at Eric, we can answer those questions over the course of the show. I also mentioned that we're sponsored by Prize Picks today. And the easiest way to get access to the tools and data that we have over at Stokastic.com is you sign up at Prize Picks using the link we have below, because that is going to get you 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. In addition to that, you're also going to get a deposit bonus of up to $100 over at Prize Picks. So later on, about the midway point through the show, after we're done talking about pitchers, before we talk about hitters, Eric and I will look at some of the projections we have for Prize Picks over at Stokastic.com to help you guys build out cards there. But just want to let you know that if you sign up using the link we have below, 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Ready to talk about some pitchers for tonight, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's hit up the pitchers then. And by the way, we don't have, if Ace of Spade is here and hasn't left us a super chat yet, Ace of Spade, I owe you a super chat still, because you left one for us on the So Rare show asking a DraftKings question that I could not answer. If you are in chat today and you haven't left your normal super chat, Don't leave the super chat. Just message and say, hey, I'm here. And I could do the run through of the tiers and I could get you back for that super chat that we still owe you. But in the meantime, talking about some of the pitchers for tonight, we've got some massive chalk at pitcher in Sonny Gray. But before we talk about him, 3 pay-up options on DraftKings, and then we'll talk about FanDuel right afterwards. We've got Shohei Ohtani, Christian Javier, Nathan Eovaldi, all above 10K, and none of them, Ace of Spade is here. There we go. This is the single most important part of the show is when we answer Ace of Spades DK tiers questions. We're going to talk about pitchers in a second, but first, DK tiers. By the way, Eric, if you could pull up Josh Engelman's Twitter account, because I believe he did his sims for tiers this morning, and we could compare some of the results in terms of what I got in my lineups to what Josh was getting to in some of his sims, and then I think we could really start to build some of this out. And Ace of Spade, this has been killing me for weeks now that we haven't gotten to refund you on your super chat, and we've done it here right now. Were you able to dig up Josh's tiers?
I just saw KJ, not a big fan of the old tiers, I see. It's fine. Not everybody's just firing up the same stuff. Some people want to play prize picks cards. Some people want to play DK tiers. Some people want to talk DFS, which is what we do 97% of the time on these shows, or 94% when Greg needs a haircut. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. But
yeah, by the way, if I ever got 5 minutes of free time, I would go get a haircut. I do not have the time. I don't have time. It takes an hour to go get the haircut.
I've been sitting in this chair permanently this week. Yeah, it's permanent. But at least Neil can play softball. That's important. We got DK tiers. I'm ready to rack.
All right. So tier 1 for me, and we're going to be talking obviously a lot about the Braves and how popular they are today. But in tier 1, Ronald Acuna to me stands out above everybody else. Who did Josh get to the most in tier 1?
Ronald Acuna by a mile.
Yep. Same here. So Ronald Acuna, I think that is who we're going to go with in tier 1. And then we're going to have some other options to stack him up with other Braves as we go here. By the way, I agree with, we've got Domer in chat. Domer 707. MLB Arcade is better than MLB tiers. Dude, MLB Arcade was the shit. That was one of the most fun formats that there's ever been on DraftKings. Unfortunately, nobody played it other than me, and it was constantly overlaying. I loved arcade mode, and apparently the field didn't really agree. I agree with you, though. Not a lot of people are going to remember it. Arcade was the shit. Anyway, tier 2, we've got Fernando Tatis there. I have to go with Fernando Tatis in tier 2, not because he carried me last night, but because I think Tatis is back. He's as good as he was prior to his injuries, prior to steroid suspension, all the nonsense with the multiple motorcycle accidents. I think Tatis is fully healthy. He's back. He's ready to go. He's had some big fantasy games as of late. I expect a lot more of that going forward. Fernando Tatis in tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fully healthy the whole year. He just had the suspension that he had to serve the rest of. I saw him play AAA ball down in Arizona. He hit a ball so far that I can't even, I mean, he's a stud. You get stolen base upside, you get homer upside, you get all of the things. Nice to see him out there running a little bit yesterday too. I think 2 stolen bases in the grouping. So I'm there with it. Josh is too.
All right. So we're on the same page so far. Maybe this is where we start to deviate, maybe not. So one thing I always like to do as we get through some of the deeper tiers is try to correlate some of my players with other ones that I've already liked in earlier tiers. So with that in mind, Austin Riley in tier 3, You're starting to get a little bit of a Braves stack with Acuna in tier 1.
Yep, it's Austin Riley by a lot in terms of projection, and Josh has that.
And then tier 4, more of the same for me. I'm going to go with Sean Murphy here. You could also go with Ozzy Albies to queue up more of a Brave stack, but I'm going to go with Sean Murphy in tier 4.
Yeah, Ozzy Albies is who Josh has. I wouldn't mind either one of them. I will say, I think Ozzy, who people who care about the hot streaks and things of that nature, that's been the case. Ozzy's been, but I mean, he's going to be hitting from the right side, I suppose. And Sean Murphy getting a platoon against Kyle Freeland. He's pretty live for a bomb, I would say.
And if we go to tier 5, nobody that we could really correlate with our previous tiers picks. Tier 5 for me is going to be Alex Bregman.
Same.
Tier 6, once again, another one we don't really have the ability to correlate this and stack it up with other options. So Jose Ramirez, the best overall player in tier 6. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, his ownership could go through the roof, though. So I would at least throw out that little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot of correlation you're going to run into with anybody in that grouping. I think Luis Robert is probably going to be completely unowned there, and seems like 20.2% tier percentage is what Josh has for him there. I would probably prefer him over Correa. Jose Ramirez, though, is definitely the clear runaway winner.
All right. So there we go. That is Tiers. Ace of Spade. I don't know you super chat anymore, but thank you anyway. And yeah, he says in there, thanks again, guys. Absolutely. I'm happy to repay the debt. It would have killed me. Every single day I sit in here, I open up the show, I go, I hope we don't have that super chat from Ace of Spade because I owe him one, and it's always sitting there waiting for us. Finally was able to pay you back. Pitchers, the question I had wanted to ask you when we were first starting, Eric, but we had Ace of Spade. A high priority for me. Shohei Ohtani, Christian Javier, Nathan Eovaldi, 3 pitchers all over 10K on DraftKings, none of them projected for more than 20% ownership. If you had to play one of these guys to differentiate one of your lineups a little bit, who would be the pay-up option you would go towards?
It's got to be, so out of the 3 pay-ups, Shohei Ohtani. His top 2 percentage is at 24.8% of the top pitcher percentage, 17.3% ownership percentage. And my thing is that Texas is terrifying. There's no doubt about it, a 117 WRC plus, but against right-handed pitching, 23% K rate's pretty much middle of the road. And then you get the ownership discount because of the terrifying matchup. And I always like in large field and pretty much any situation like this where extremely good offense faces extremely good pitcher with, the top K rate here on the board. How is Shohei Ohtani not the guy that you want to get to more? I think Nathan Eovaldi going up against the Angels, he's fine, but I don't find him to be nearly as appealing at identical ownership as Shohei is. And then Christian Javier against Washington, I think that's where we might see people steamed up if they get away from the Sonny Gray, the Marcus Stroman, Sonny Gray kind of middle. So, Shohei right now is my highest owned pitcher not named Sonny Gray.
Yep. Overall, Shohei Ohtani is my highest owned pitcher when I was running my lineups. And also, if you guys looked at the Twitter content that I've been doing where I've been running lineups through our sims and just showing you guys what the results are, Ohtani was my most leveraged pitcher. He's the one that I got the most overweight to. And where is Eric going?
Hello.
What happened?
Oh, just my hardwire. It needs to be hardwired because you kept sputtering out on me, and I realized it was probably a me thing. It's me. Hi. Okay. I'm the problem.
Yeah, I was confused. All of a sudden you got up. I was like, oh, is this going to be...
I just saw that it switched to you on the screen, and so I just did an educated thing, but then you just blew my cover. It's no big deal.
Oh, good. No. That's very important to me that I make sure that everybody knows any mistake you make. We can't let those things go unnoticed. But Shohei Ohtani, my most rostered pitcher for today, my favorite overall pitcher on the slate. It's very rare that we get slates where Ohtani is pitching and is not massively popular, let alone a 7-game slate.
Yeah, I was going to say, let alone short slates.
Yeah, short slate. And I understand that Ohtani's been not great as a pitcher since the first month of the season, but there's still immense upside there. He generates a lot of strikeouts. So there's definitely some risk factor with him going up against the Texas Rangers, but still, I do think that based on the upside and the ownership, Ohtani is the guy to go to here at the pay-up spot for pitcher. And we've got a super chat here from Devin Neiman. Devin wants to know projections for Scherer and maybe a pitch count guess. Let's see. Where am I on him? AJ Smith Scherer, who is starting.
I have no issues with pitch count. None.
I'm not that much different than the field on him. I don't have any real pitch count concerns either.
Yeah. It's not that. I have ownership concerns is what I have relative to other pitchers on this slate. It's not that hard to get over on Shohei for me. There's one pitcher in Mackenzie Gore that I have a ton of today relative to the field at 8.4%, currently rated in the mid-20s on that. We'll be running that one more time. I think Ryan Weathers is pretty interesting as well, just as 1% purely because of that. Going up against a Cleveland team, I don't find it be all that difficult to face. There's a number of spots where I kind of find more appealing spots that are just less than half of the ownership that we're looking at for him.
He's so cheap that I think he's acceptable, right? Like I'm looking through my lineups. I'm fairly close to the field in terms of exposure to him, right around 20%. He's somewhat popular, but not crazy. He's 5,500.
He's the third most popular pitcher on the slate.
I mean, you're splitting hairs though, because he's third most popular, but he's 20.7% owned.
Okay.
Christian Javier is 19.7. Eovaldi's 17. Ohtani's 17.3. So like these guys are kind of grouped together in terms of ownership. Like 20.7 is not some sort of number that I'm like, oh my God, I can't play that salary.
No. I'm not saying that you can't play him. I definitely am playing him, but I'm not going to play him at 20-ish% at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of going cheap, who is the number one guy you'd want to get to as a pivot off? I know you mentioned that there are some guys in there. Like I know you said Ryan Weathers. You had said Mackenzie Gore is a little bit more expensive, but also on the cheap end. If you had to roster one punt play at pitcher who is not the Braves' young starter, which would you go to?
Got to be Michael Grove. Michael Grove's somebody that I'm getting to a little bit more than I'm getting to him down there. He's a little bit cheaper. He gets to face the White Sox, who, to say they've been bad this season would be a little bit of an understatement. For the season against right-handed pitching, second worst in baseball, 81 WRC plus, just a 147 ISO. I know they're healthier and just a 22.7% K rate, about average there against that handedness. I just think Michael Grove's a little bit better than we've seen. He is a little bit cheaper. It's not that I have pitch count concerns for AJ Smith, but like Michael Grove, he's been very, very bad so far this season, but there's been spots against the Yankees, against the Cubs. He has spiked 6-7 strikeout type upside. So at 5,200, it's simply a point of deviation. He's currently almost half the ownership right now of him as well. I'm finding myself a little bit more expensive there towards Mackenzie Gore, but currently, as I'm finishing out my Sims and everything else, I think it's going to end up being Michael Grove that I get to a little bit more than AJ Smith.
Yeah. So the other thing too is like, I'm fairly close to the field on Smith Shaver. So it's not like he's somebody who I'm like, oh, this is some, crazy good value option. I just think the ownership is about appropriate. And then also he's so cheap, he opens up other possibilities for you. The cheap player that I'm getting the most of relative to ownership, who also you brought up, it's Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore is projected for sub 10% ownership. He's a young pitcher with a lot of strikeout upside. Something else that I found for this slate is it's not like you need to go super cheap at pitcher all that frequently, right? Like there's enough salary savings where you don't have to. And then if you are going to be expensive at offense, chances are you're probably playing the Atlanta Braves, who are uber popular. But I like getting to Mackenzie Gore more than the field. He's a pitcher who we've seen a ceiling from, also not consistent. I don't care all that much about that from a tournament perspective. But if I just look at some of the game logs, for instance, for Mackenzie Gore, here are his last 4 starts. 4 fantasy points, kind of shit. 14 fantasy points, mediocre. 33, that's great. 8 fantasy points, also kind of shit. That's what his numbers look like. If you look at his fantasy cruncher game log, you're going to see, red, green, kind of what you like from a GPP upside perspective, especially when you consider Mackenzie Gore is, $7,800 and has legitimate upside to score big fantasy points. So the matchup clearly is not great for Mackenzie Gore on the road against Houston. If we have to say one positive for it, though, Yordan Alvarez is out, which does make the lineup a little bit weaker.
Yeah, so him and Mauricio Dubuon. You have Yordan Alvarez had an 18.9% K rate last season, 22.7% this season, in less than half of that sample size. So if we just put that at about 22%, relative to any other outfield option, whether it's Chas McCormick, whether it's Corey Julks, whether it's Jake Myers, any of these guys have 27% plus K rates this season. So that's a huge upgrade. But then you also take Mauricio Dubuon, who for the season has had one of the lower K rates, if not the lowest K rate on this team here, along with Bregman and Kyle Tucker, just 12.8% K rate, leading the Houston Astros in that department with Alex Bregman. That is a huge, gigantic upgrade for Mackenzie Gore. As soon as I saw that lineup come out, 28.2% K rate for Mackenzie Gore. He is shooting through the moon for me.
Yep. Relative to ownership, I definitely think he's somebody to get overweight to the field to. The other pitcher that I think we should talk about, and then, or 2 pitchers we should talk about, and then we'll start to just wrap up the rest of the contrarian options. Sonny Gray projected for north of 40% ownership, $9,300 for the Twins here. Great matchup against the Detroit Tigers. Listen, it's a great spot for Sonny Gray. He's underpriced. If you're playing cash games, that you're playing Sonny Gray. And by the way, that goes for DraftKings or FanDuel. So if you're playing over on FanDuel, Sonny Gray, 10,100. Fairly expensive, but still, I think he's the guy you go to in cash games. For DraftKings purposes, I would say you play Sonny Gray in cash games. For tournament purposes, though, I'm not going to be at 40% of them. I'd rather play Shohei Ohtani at less than half the ownership. Same with Christian Javier, Nathan Eovaldi. Sonny Gray is safer than those guys. He's cheaper, but I don't think he's like 2-1 to outscore those guys on any given slate. So I come in underweight to the field on Sonny Gray. prefer some of the pitchers who are a little bit more expensive and less popular, Ohtani being the number one for me. But relative to ownership, how are you viewing Sonny Gray?
So I am just below the field, but he's still my highest owned pitcher. And this is a wild slate just because of that fact. There's no pronounced pitching option. There's no person that is in both a fantastic spot and has a 28% plus K rate. You have Mackenzie Gore, who's got a 28% K rate and is facing the Houston Astros still. So it's a little bit terrifying to that extent. Shohei Ohtani. It looks like you and I are basically just saying, give us the K, guys, and then we'll just take shots on the matchup. Hopefully they can find success there in that department. Sonny Gray's the one guy who checks at least the matchup department and is at least above average in terms of strikeout. But the case is always just he's going to be the most popular pitcher. He is at a price point that's pretty difficult to get away from. So I have 38% of him right now. So I'm not at 40, but again, 2% away. I'm still getting to him quite a bit because I think it just makes sense on this slate to just be flat on him and see what happens.
Yeah, and a little spoiler when we get ahead in the show, my single entry stack is the Detroit Tigers for today. I do.
Oh, stop it! Don't do that to me. Don't do that.
Sonny Gray is going to be like 80% owned in single entry today.
The Tigers have a 3 implied run total.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Oh my God! If this actually works out for you,
by the way, it's actually 4.2 is the implied team total for the Tigers.
The Tigers do? No, they don't. No, they don't. They have a 3 implied run total. The game has a 7.5 total. The Twins have like 4.5 or 4.4, I believe. Yeah, the Tigers have a 3.07 implied run total.
So the way that we calculate it, though, in our top stacks tool, we have the Tigers at 4.2. We do it a little bit differently because it's not just based on the mean outcome. Neither here nor there, though. I like the Tigers in single entry, mostly because I do think Sonny Gray is going to be 70 to 80% owned in single entry today.
I mean, he's going to be very popular, but that is a leverage stack I cannot get behind today. Down with you, down with the sickness.
Number one leverage stack in our top stacks tool. When I was running my Sims, it was the number one ROI stack of the day. I'm going to be playing the Tigers in single entry. Will it work? Probably not. But if it does, I'll take first place, which I will live with. If we walk through the rest of the pitchers on the slate, the other one we have to talk about is the one that I have the least interest in relative to his ownership. Marcus Stroman projected for 27% ownership on DraftKings. It's a lot. Stroman's had a really solid year, and his strikeout numbers are better than they have been in the past, but I just don't view him as having the same upside as some of the other pitchers that we have on this slate. And it's hard for me to play Stroman when he's this popular. Honestly, we have a lot of other pitchers who are not that much more expensive that are also lesser owned than him. So Marcus Stroman, I have almost no interest in at 27%. I think he's the most over-owned pitcher on the entire slate. What do you make of Stroman?
He would make sense, but I'm right there with you. At the current ownership, it's hard for me to get behind it. Looking at his numbers, he has a 4.16 xFIP against lefties on the season, giving up just a 181 average, but I expect negative regression against them for sure. Now, there aren't a ton of big poppers coming to the plate, and the hitting conditions are not good there in Wrigley today. There's no doubt about it, but it really comes down to what you think that K rate is going to look like relative to other pitchers on the slate, because I just find it hard to believe that 6 innings, 4 Ks, maybe 2 earned. Like, I'm much happier taking shots on Ohtani for much lower ownership, taking shots on Eovaldi, even if you were going to go that direction. I'm not really getting there because he can't play everybody. I guess you could, because people tend to do that from time to time. But I'm pretty positive that when I finish everything out here, Marcus Stroman is going to be my least owned pitcher relative to the current ownership.
Yep, exact same for me. He's somebody who I hardly got to at all when I was running lineups for both DraftKings and for FanDuel, and he's fairly popular today. So definitely if Stroman goes out and has a massive game, it'll probably be a shitty slate for me because he's not somebody who I'm really all that interested in. We have a question here from Einsteinium in our Discord chat who wants to know if we have any love for Matt Boyd. Relative to his ownership, I do think he's worth being overweight to the field too. But like if you're playing one lineup, Matt Boyd wouldn't be in it. I think he's worth more than 5% ownership, but hard to say I love him. I just think that he is warranting more ownership than what he's getting.
Agreed.
Any other pitchers you want to talk about for DraftKings, Eric? If not, we'll go and talk about FanDuel. Everybody else is fairly low owned that we haven't discussed yet.
Yep, let's jump over there.
All right. So if we go and talk about FanDuel here, Mentioned that Sonny Gray, if you guys are playing in cash games, I think he is the guy to go to. 24% owned, 10,100. He's safe in a matchup against the Tigers. He's the cash game play over on FanDuel. For tournaments, though, is there anything that really stands out to you on FanDuel above everything else? Because once you get to Sonny Gray, past him at 24% owned, everything else is kind of flat. You got 11% ownership to Ohtani, 6% to Eovaldi, 10% for Christian Javier, 11% there for Stroman. So Stroman not as popular on FanDuel. The main reason being that he's 10,500 as opposed to the 8,700 price tag. So if we're getting past Sonny Gray, who is the GPP pitcher you like the most for FanDuel purposes?
Yeah, somebody stole it from me in the chat because this was the guy that I had for FanDuel. I'm playing one lineup on FanDuel. It's Matthew Boyd facing my Minnesota Twins. He's 7K over there. Now, the price discrepancy, that's one of the reasons I'm getting there. He is 5.8K there. Maybe I need to reconsider even on two pitcher sites, but for some reason, I wasn't getting to him over on DraftKings. But hand building, it makes complete sense to be getting to him. One, he's down there at 7K. Two, it's not any kind of a pitch count concern. We have the quality start and win bonus, so you're definitely going after those. But the main thing for me, a 27.2% K rate for the Twins against left-handed pitching this season and just an 89 WRC plus. They are not a very good offense against lefties traditionally. And I understand this has been an abysmal, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad year for Matthew Boyd. But if you're looking at a one pitcher site and you're trying to find a path there, because of how cheap he is, I think it gives you some extra outs. We're seeing that ownership come up for him a little bit there. But playing one lineup, Matthew Boyd's my guy.
Yep, that's how I don't mind that at all. So one other thing that I talk about, not like a ton, although it's probably come up more recently when I talked about FanDuel than has in other points in times. If Matt Boyd pitches well and gets a win, you know what happens, Eric?
What?
It means that the most popular pitcher on the slate, Sonny Gray, does not get a win. So there's leverage to be had from that sense as well when you're playing Matt Boyd over on FanDuel. And that win bonus matters so much more on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings. So would never play Matt Boyd in a cash game over on FanDuel. But we're talking about him at 7K for a large field tournament where he's projected for super low ownership, basically almost not 4% over on FanDuel on a small slate. Yeah, he goes out, he pitches well, he gets the win. You're getting some additional leverage off of Sonny Gray. So I like him quite a bit as a tournament play.
Glad you're on board with it. Go them. And then I'm not stacking up the Tigers to go with them. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, well, I will be playing the Tigers. We'll talk about more of them in a little bit here. As for everything else on FanDuel, I kind of think everything else applies to FanDuel. We've already talked about on DraftKings. Like I think Mackenzie Gore at 4% ownership and a relatively cheap price tag makes some sense. If I'm paying up for a pitcher, I prefer Shohei Ohtani to Nathan Eovaldi or Christian Javier. Is it about the same for you, or is there anything else you'd want to add for the FanDuel side?
I want to get your opinion on Johan Oviedo, mainly because I didn't know what I was going to do with him. I'm not playing everybody here, but he's coming off of some decent outings with some decent ground ball rates. He's had at least 5 strikeouts now in, 5 consecutive games now. And the conditions are just fantastic for pitching. Winds blowing in from center over in Wrigley Field today. Do you have any Johan Oviedo in your life?
Let's see. Not really. No, it's a couple issues. Number one is not somebody who really generates a whole lot of strikeouts. He's also actually picking up some ownership today. So you got Johan Oviedo is 9.3% owned over on FanDuel, 11% on DraftKings. Not like a significant amount of ownership, but the fact that the field is getting there kind of at all eliminates any of the interest I might potentially have in him. If it was a scenario where, hey, we got this favorable pitching weather and Oviedo is like 2 or 3% owned, I could consider it, but not when he's actually, 11% on ZK, 9 on FanDuel.
All right. We're on the same page there then. I just wasn't getting to him. It was sad times.
All right. So let's go and talk about our lineup generator and see what we end up getting to when we build lineups in the MLB lineup generator. So we'll do this for DraftKings. We'll do it for FanDuel. I think for today, we should build out some contrarian lineups, Jordan Klein. When we go and click on the buttons over here, make this bigger so I can see it on my screen. And if you guys want to sign up for our MLB lineup generator, I've been telling you guys, this is the easiest way for entry-level players into DFS, or just new MLB players. If you're not exactly sure what the strategy should be, go check out our MLB lineup generator. And this is going to have a couple different utilities. Number one, it's going to build lineups for you, right? Easy way to get 20 lineups built for you. You could upload them right to DraftKings or FanDuel. But also, if you're somebody who's hand building some lineups, I think this can give you a pretty good idea of some core players to build around. So let's do all stack types for DraftKings. All stack types, Jordan. And contrarian. I want to go contrarian today since it's a 7-game slate. Curious to see what pops up when we're making contrarian lineups. It looks like
So giddy. I'm ready.
Pretty good mix of stacks that are coming in here. Maybe not. All right, so we got to a ton of Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna, Sean Murphy, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna. Those are our 4 most rostered hitters in the lineup generator we just ran. By the way, if you guys want to sign up for this, use the link below. You sign up for the first time, get access for less than $5. But a lot of Atlanta Braves popping up here. Actually, I didn't realize the next most popular player we had there was Nathan Eovaldi. So we have Shohei Ohtani and Nathan Eovaldi, somewhat contrarian at pitcher, right? Both sub 20% owned. And our top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hitters are all Atlanta Braves. So Eric, we're going to be talking about the Braves a little bit in a second here. What are you going to be doing with them today? Because even when we're trying to build contrarian lineups in the lineup generator, it's giving us somewhat contrarian pitchers, but we're still loading up on a chalky Braves team.
Yeah, they're showing up in some of my sims here as well. I am pretty positive that I'm going to get to them in some capacity. Now, the real question becomes, how am I going to utilize them, this team with a 6 implied team total, both with Vegas and with our tools? How about that one, Greg? Feeling pretty good about this team putting up runs. Now, I'm just trying to figure out different combinations of players, but Acuna has just been so damn good. He's going to be so damn popular. I think with good reason here. Just because they're popular doesn't mean you automatically need to hit eject. It seems like our sims have been in love with Gunnar Henderson in a lot of spots where maybe the entire Baltimore lineup didn't make sense. I think the same can definitely be true playing a little bit of Ronald Acuna in both a one-off and a 1-2 setting there with Ozzie Albies, who's now batting second here in this Atlanta lineup. He's been really, really good. Been better from the right side, 4,800 there at second. Makes sense because you look at these positions, just like we were talking about with DK tiers, they're the highest projected, but not just the highest projected by a little bit, highest projected by a lot on this slate. So relative to other teams, I think it would be foolish to be playing 150 lineups and be full fading.
Yeah, and I mean, even when I was running lineups with all the ownership going to, I'm not going to play like single entry. Don't go and play the Braves in a single entry.
No.
They're going to be crazy popular there. But if you're talking large field tournaments, we've got this team projected for 15% aggregate ownership on DraftKings with a 19% chance to be the top scoring team. So even though they are expected to be the most popular team by a fairly decent margin in large field tournaments, we still have them going under owned. We have them being a team that is a 4% gap between their top stack odds and their ownership. So in large field tournaments, I think you guys should be playing the Braves and playing them a lot. And I think that really stands out that even though we tried to build contrarian lineups here, we got to a ton of the Atlanta Braves. If we scroll down, I'm curious to see what else ended up popping up. Some Twins. Byron Buxton is back now. We've got Logan Allen as a super contrarian pitching play. Christian Javier. It looks like we got to almost none of Sonny Gray in these 20 lineups. So that's what made this contrarian. And Sonny Gray, if you do look at our top pitchers tool, for instance, he is showing up as the most over-owned pitcher on the entire slate, both him and Marcus Stroman. So when we build contrarian lineups here, hardly getting to any of Sonny Gray or Marcus Stroman. But it looks like our second most rostered stack is the Cleveland Guardians behind the Atlanta Braves. Anything else that you're noticing here, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is the Sonny Gray ownership. I mean, that's Sonny Gray not even really there. It's pretty wild. Kyle Tucker, Christian Javier, seeing Corey Julks, some of those guys in that 20-ish% range. Doesn't look like it's getting stacked. Oh, Martin Maldonado sitting right underneath it, I suppose, as well. But some cheap pieces there. I have a lot of Mackenzie Gore, and I'm getting leverage there. I also think this is just a both sides. I do like getting to the big pieces there. No Jordan Alvarez is a big deal, but you're getting a cheap McCormick moving up there in the lineup leading off today. You get Kyle Tucker, you get Julks there, who I think is a decent enough hitter. I think he'll continue to improve as the year goes along. Altuve, Bregman, of course, Pena sitting there at shortstop. That's going to be a team that I'm prioritizing. If I'm not playing single entry today, but I would be heavily considering Houston as that, as well as I would be considering Mackenzie Gore at pitcher. I'd have to pick one of the two lanes.
All right, so let's go and build some lineups out for FanDuel as well, because we got both DraftKings and FanDuel in our MLB lineup generator. So see Jordan Klein going over here, pulling up FanDuel, go all stack types. Same deal. I want to make contrarian lineups. And based on what we saw before, I'm going to assume we get to a ton of Braves, and then at pitcher, I assume we're going to get to Ohtani a bunch as well. Well, any other guesses from you, Eric? Secondary stack we get to, or maybe a pitcher
Ohtani.
other than Ohtani?
I mean, I bet we get to some Padres over on FanDuel in a way that we didn't get to them over on DK.
All right. I don't know what Jordan is doing here.
He's having fun. He's enjoying himself.
Just clicking buttons.
I just flipped the switch.
All right. So, yeah, no surprise. A ton of Braves: Acuna, Arcia, Albies, Pilar, Austin Riley. So, what is that? 6 of our most 7 rostered players, something like that. Atlanta Braves there. As far as pitchers go, we got to Ohtani the most. Logan Allen showing up the second most at pitcher. Keep scrolling down. I want to see what else we got to at pitcher. Brother Marcelo Zuna, Matt Olson. Yeah, all of the Braves. Not a shock there. And then, yeah, pretty spread out at pitching beyond Ohtani. You see, we got some exposure to Christian Javier. I wonder who the other pitchers are then. Nathan Eovaldi. Some Matt Boyd once again. Yeah, so pretty spread out at pitcher, although still we do have the predominant pitching option being Shohei Ohtani. More building contrarian lineups here. And then other stacks we got to, it looks like the Twins. Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, Donovan Solano, Byron Buxton, Kyle Farmer. What do you make of the Twin stacks on FanDuel, considering they're popping up as our most frequent secondary stack here?
Yeah, I mean, they are so cheap. I mean, it's that's kind of where I was curious on what was going to happen. I'm playing Matthew Boyd, so you can know I'm going to expensive hitters in that capacity. I'm getting to Dodgers and Padres for my single entry over on FanDuel here. But you look through this entire Twins lineup, there isn't a single hitter above 3,300. Byron Buxton, probably the most undervalued hitter on FanDuel at 3,300 relative to talent level. And that is saying something because you have like Xander Bogaerts at 3K, guys of that nature. Royce Lewis with third base, shortstop, 3K as well. Just such a cheap team with a lot of power. Matthew Boyd's had a tough year. So even though I'm riding out with Matt Boyd, not surprising to see the Twins showing up on FanDuel.
And Fernando Tatis showing up as a one-off there. We got him in 25% of lineups. So yeah, it looks like we got Ohtani at pitcher, kind of a mix behind him, primarily Braves stacks, Twins as secondary stack, and then one-offs we got to was Tatis is the number one there, 25%. So that is going to wrap up looking at lineups in the MLB lineup generator. And now, once again, if you guys have questions for us, at me in the Discord channel, we could answer those. And in the meantime, though, let's go and talk about Prize Picks, Eric. I know something that you like quite a bit. You play a bunch on Prize Picks. See you talking about it. If you guys sign up there using the link we have below, you're going to get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, which includes the MLB lineup generator. We got some good, what are those?
They're hot dogs.
They're hot dogs. So, all right. So we got some hot dog discounts here. Dylan Cease, his strikeouts has been discounted to 4. I love that Shohei Ohtani won 5.5.
Yep.
You want to be getting exposure to both of those over on Prize Picks, but also, like I said, don't forget, if you sign up, use our promo code. Also, if you guys are playing or you live in a state that doesn't have access to Prize Picks, like I live in New Jersey, I can't play on Prize Picks, but I've got access to sites like BetMGM. And if you sign up at BetMGM for the first time, same deal as over on Prize Picks. You sign up using our link and you're going to get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So go check that out. And there's my cell phone screen. You get a picture of Eric, but no, we got me. But you sign up over at BetMGM, 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Also, your first bet insured up to $1,000. If you or anybody know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, good stuff. Get me off the screen. Time to talk about Prize Picks, and we'll go and look at some of the projections that we have in our Bet Pro package. In the meantime, though, Eric, is there anything that's really stood out to you on Prize Picks today outside of the Dylan Cease and the Shohei Ohtani discounted props?
Yeah, curious. What is your projection today when we talk about hitters for one Mookie Betts?
Well, I just use our projection, so it's whatever our projections are.
Yep.
Let's see. Mookie Betts, and it's the same scoring as FanDuel, correct?
As DraftKings for FanDuel, it's FanDuel for the pitcher. For a hitter, it is DraftKings.
All right, so it looks like we have Mookie at where'd it go? So we have.
I'll kill the suspense here.
Wait, no,
Mookie,
no.
Go
I
ahead.
have to answer your question. We Mookie for 9.5 fantasy points. Oh,
well,
my God.
He has 7.5 on Prize Picks today.
Okay.
He makes a phenomenal option to pair up with one of either Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. Now, Will Smith has a 6.5 hitter fantasy score. So just the way that you're looking at this, you play the two together. I'm looking for pairings. This is something I did a lot back when they had the home run trios, but I'm looking for correlation in addition to projection. It's not just that you've got both of those plays together, but when one succeeds, the other one has a higher likelihood of succeeding. When one doesn't, the other probably doesn't, because they are exposed to the same environment. They are right next to each other in the order, first and third. They are both going to be facing the same starting pitcher in the same ballpark. All of the things correlate together where one has a good game, the other could have a good game. So especially when they're close in the lineup like this, Mookie Betts, Will Smith get that extra correlation bump. And they're both projected for nearly 2 fantasy points, too low compared to our projections. So Mookie Betts, Will Smith, my favorite duo for Prize Picks purposes today.
All right. Mookie Betts, Will Smith, those ones are both standing out. And you could combine that with, can you use both of the hot dogs in the same card, or can only
no,
one at
just one at a time, one at a time.
All right. So only picking one, I prefer the Ohtani one. Same for you, or would it be Dylan?
Correct. That's the one I have with my main deal where I had Betts, Will Smith. I do have a card where I split up the other one where I went with Freeman and Will Smith.
All right. I'm pulling up our Pick'em Pro projections, which, by the way, if you guys want access to our Pick'em Pro, super cheap. Get access to it for the first time, less than $5. You sign up using the link that we have below, and you'll see all of our projections in here for all the props. And based on what we have in here, one thing that I like there's a few that I think look pretty interesting. Our number one projected one is Logan Allen over 4.5 strikeouts. I get the matchup is really tough. The Padres offense is finally coming around, but 4.5, like there's just a point where the number is too low on a talented pitcher in Logan Allen. So it's not like 6 strikeouts is a crazy high projection we have on him, but 4.5 is such a low number on Prize Picks. I like Logan Allen for over 4.5 strikeouts.
I love that. Logan Allen. So I have to switch something out because obviously I can't play Cease against my batters, or I wouldn't want to anyway. So I like that Logan Allen play. I'm going to add that to the card.
All right. Logan Allen. And I think this is a pretty good looking here. We got some fantasy points that are correlated for the Dodgers. We've got a hot dog, which is discounted. We've got a Logan Allen play, which is our top projected one here in our Pick'em Pro tool. So lots of stuff there to help you guys out with Prize Picks. Also, if you want to cheat a little bit, you can rewind a few seconds and see some of the other projections that we had on the screen for a second. Tip for people that are watching right there. You can pause utilities or the internet. Oh my God, look at Jordan just giving away stuff for free. And if you guys want to sign up and get more access to this, like I said, we got the link below. Get it for less than $5 when you sign up for the first time. Let's talk about some stacks now. We got about 10 minutes left to go here. We've talked a lot about the stacks that we kind of like over the course of the show. We've talked about how the Atlanta Braves are a really popular stack that we love in large field tournaments for single entry. I'm going to be off of them. If you had to play one stack today, Eric, that wasn't the Atlanta Braves, what would be your recommendation for large field tournaments? Doesn't necessarily have to be for anything in particular.
Yeah, if you're trying to do it purely off projection, or like I need to score the most points today because it's pinball, you would play the Braves. But because that's not the game that we're playing, I am finding myself on kind of a smattering of Dodgers, Padres. Talked about them both from FanDuel purposes, even on DraftKings here in my 150, finding my way to both of them. Minnesota a little bit devalued, but if I had to play one lineup today, I think I go to the San Diego side of things against Logan Allen. I know he was projecting out decently well for us there, but it's other than Mr. Tatis, who I definitely don't want to be omitting from stacks. There isn't a ton of ownership coming in on some of these guys. You get Kim with some salary relief, 3,600 with dual eligibility, moving up to 5th in this lineup. Dixon has not been good so far this season, but I'm just removing Nola. I'm playing 1 through 8. I'm not even touching Nola. So if you guys want to know if I could fix Aaron Nola for a day here, I'll go ahead and play him. He's not even in my stacks, but it's not a very high ownership sum based on what we have here. I know that they're a little bit negatively leveraged in the top stacks tool, but we just saw the upside of Tatis. Eventually, you're going to run into a game here where Logan Allen is going to get obliterated. He's generally kind of kept it together this season, but it's been a little bit of smoke and mirrors compared to, you just look at his expected ERA compared to ERA, 3.31. He's got a 4.35 expected ERA. So I don't really find that 4-seamer sweeper all that difficult for righties to get to. He's not a high velocity guy. sits right around 92. If that changeup isn't working, he's going to get shelled sooner rather than later. Hopefully some of these righties can get it done for us. Even, I mean, Soto, no ownership, left on left. A couple of these other guys I'll be getting to.
Yeah, if I had to pick one team within reason, then we could talk about the Detroit Tigers. You could unsuccessfully try to talk me out of them in a second. But if we're talking about teams that I actually have like a bigger degree of confidence in, and the Tigers are more specifically a single entry stack for me. But getting to the Cleveland Guardians against Ryan Weathers, Weathers has been better this year than in previous years, but that is not saying much because he has generally just been dog shit throughout his big league career. Mm-hmm. Ryan Weathers this year, 4.93 ERA, 5.26 FIP. He also just generates no swing and misses. 15.4% strikeout rate this year. For his career, it's 17.1%. That's even though he's worked out of the bullpen a decent amount. So Ryan Weathers is not a pitcher I have a good deal of respect for. And the Cleveland Guardians offense, there is some firepower, and hitters are really priced down. Like Jose Ramirez is $4,500 on DraftKings. A really cheap price for Jose Ramirez. And also, if you look at the previous years for Ryan Weathers last year, he only made one start last year. I'll take it out.
Yeah.
If you look at 2 years ago where he made 30 appearances, he had a 5.32 ERA, 5.3 expected ERA. They sent him down to the minor leagues. And then in the minor leagues in AAA 2022, 6.73 ERA, 7.21 FIP for Ryan Weathers in AAA that year. So it's really hard for me to think this guy is big league caliber. If you look at his projections across, like Zips, Steamer, those kind of projection sources, everybody has him as a fair talent level, either high fours or low fives in terms of what his ERA is expected to be. So Cleveland Guardians, a little bit under-owned against Ryan Weathers, projected for around 7.5% ownership with top stack odds north of 8%. So I like the Cleveland Guardians as a team that is a little bit under-owned, but I also think has some considerable upside.
But you're still playing the Detroit Tigers in single entry, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But that to me also is just based on ownership.
Correct. And then that's the same thing for me where San Diego, I think the top stacks tool, they've got a little less there's negative leverage that exists there. I'm not positive that that's going to be the case as I'm just kind of running through some stuff. And over on FanDuel, I'm going to use them as the 4-man. I do like getting to Tatis. He was somebody that popped up a lot in our lineup generator. He's popping up sim-wise. So feel pretty good about getting to at least the big boppers in that lineup. You do get Nelson Cruz still there as well. He started to show some semblance of himself. He's 100 years old, still smacking baseballs, but good to see him start to swing the bat a little bit. The Cleveland side of it is still really intriguing too, because Weathers is terrible. What you talking about, Withers?
What did you just say?
Wasn't that from Simpsons? Withers? Mr. Burns, right?
That's maybe your worst impression you've ever done. Jordan Klein, weigh in. Do you have any clue what it is he just said? Okay, so there's two issues from Jordan Klein. He doesn't watch The Simpsons, nor do I think he watches this show. So he's very lost in everything that's going on right now.
He just went to screen share. He couldn't wait, and he just kept it on screen share far after we didn't need it anymore. So he can...
Jordan gets excited to put the screen share on because then it's pants off and he's masturbating. He's not paying attention to the show anymore. See, right now he's like, no, look, I'm moving my mouse around, which he could conveniently do with only one hand. But yeah, see, he's like, no, look, this team is negative 0.7% that we're not talking about. Anyway, if we look at the rest of the teams on the top stacks board, one team that shows up being positive leverage that I never get to when Ohtani pitches is the Angels. It's so hard to stack up their offense when he pitches. So it'll be individual spots where like the offense rates out well, but you don't get access to Shohei Ohtani. I can't believe we're this far into his career and there's been no solution from DraftKings or FanDuel to get Ohtani eligible as a pitcher and a hitter. But if we're looking at the ownership of all of these teams, what is your least favorite offense relative to ownership?
Relative to ownership. Let me rerun this.
So just
got to be Texas. I mean, I have so much Ohtani, and I'm not going to be hedging out of it at all. I have virtually zero Texas, and they are a really good offense. Corey Seager's pulling, all the ownership like you probably should. Nathan Lau, Jonathan Heim, great catching option, but like this is just going to be if Texas decides to go off, I'm in a lot of trouble today.
They're the 5th most popular offense on the slate.
It's wild to me.
I get that.
Do you think we get to the flip and it's just because I get why, because it's based on projection and Texas is popular, but I would find it very difficult to look and see Ohtani was pitching and still click on the names of the Texas Rangers.
It's also, I mean, they're the fifth. It's a smallish slate. They're the fifth most popular offense on the slate. By the way, more reason to like Ohtani. There's very rare times you roster Ohtani where not only is he kind of low, but you're getting leverage. You roster Ohtani, like you're getting leverage off of a really popular offense. You've got the Texas Rangers against Shohei Ohtani are more popular than the Guardians against Ryan Weathers. They're more popular than the White Sox against Michael Grove. They're more popular than pretty much any other team you look at on the slate. So more reason to like Ohtani. And then I agree with you. Texas Rangers, not an offense that I really like getting to at all relative to what their ownership is. I'm looking through my exposures and not a team that I was really getting to here, partially because of how high I am on Shohei Ohtani. Are there any real value offenses that you like on the slate? A super cheap offense you might be getting to that enables you to pay up for two of the stud pitchers?
Yeah, this is probably the disgusting one of the night, more than likely. I mean, Cleveland, you talked about, I don't think they're all that expensive outside of, Jose Ramirez, and he should be expensive. But I mean, the Houston Astros don't really have a ton of cost attached to a lot of these batters. And I think just mixing and matching them in 2 and 3 mans of your stack versions and getting to the Kyle Tuckers, really hard to get away from Chas McCormick batting a leadoff today in a lot of my builds against Mackenzie Gore. I like Mackenzie Gore a lot, but this is an absolute both sides of it for me. Pretty positive that Houston would be my answer in terms of value. There's nobody, I mean, Pena's down at 4,500, Kyle Tucker's 5,100, but even relative to their talent level, they're not that expensive.
The number one value stack in our top stacks tool, the Detroit Tigers. So I'm just going to bring this up one more time. Here's why I'm playing the Tigers in single entry today. Number one, nobody's playing them. Number two, everybody is playing Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray is expecting the most popular pitcher on the slate. I expect that to be magnified in single entry. That's always how the chalk goes. I have access to an offense that enables me to pay up for whoever else I want. 5-man Tiger stacks. I could play Ohtani. I could play Uvalde, a pitcher, whoever else it is I like. And then I could pay up for like Ronald Acuna. I could pay up for Fernando Tatis, whoever I want as the other pieces. And I just like the leverage I'm getting. The way that I play single entry and the way that I consider ownership, I'm getting to the Detroit Tigers. I also think they make sense in large field tournaments, but particularly in single entry because of the way that I think the ownership is going to be focused on Sonny Gray. Is this a team that you're getting to at all today?
0%.
Zero.
I don't have a single batter from the Detroit Tigers in my lineups.
0.0. By the way, it's not like if you're just trying to make a lineup of players you think are going to play well today, you're not playing the Detroit Tigers.
No.
But that's also not exactly how I'm considering MLB DFS. There's just what would be an ownership on Sonny Gray where you would consider the Detroit Tigers?
0.3% across the board. 0.5% across the board.
No. Ownership on Sonny Gray.
Ownership on Sonny Gray.
If Sonny Gray was 0.3%.
Yeah, if he was 50, if he was, so again, this is the single entry difference. Like I'm not playing single entry today, so I don't think there's a point, but 55% I'd be away from it.
Okay. No, but what would be the ownership where you would stack the Tigers against him?
Yeah, as I'm saying, he would have to be at 55% or higher. I don't think he gets to 55% in like, the $15 today.
Gotcha. I don't think he will in that either. I think he'll be in the 40s. Single entry, though, I think he will be above 55%. We'll see, though. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in a few minutes here as the slate is locking. But any final thoughts? Anything that we've not yet brought to the people, Eric, that you want to bring up as we're at lock here?
Go Shohei Ohtani, go Mackenzie Gore. Let's have some fun tonight, friends.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. Thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with all of your bets today. Good luck with your prize picks. You build a prize picks card. Good luck with your DFS lineups. Have a good night, guys. Catch you tomorrow. Peace.